Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. I'm Mike Graham and it is 7:02. Blimey, we're a little bit late. Sorry about that. I'm not quite sure why. We were slightly tardy getting everything organised. As you can see from the international clock, it's only 8 o'clock in some parts of the world. Elliot Keck is here. Very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Taxpayers Alliance. Busy week for you guys this week.
Yeah, very busy.
Because we've had a complete and utter... I don't know, what's the word for a shit show that you can say that it doesn't sound like shit show? We have to come up with another word because I don't like to swear. People don't like me swearing, apparently.
Maybe apocalypse.
Apocalypse? Yeah, I like that. Well, no, we can't.
That's the swear word, I'm afraid, yeah.
No. Anyway, listen, we've got lots to talk about this morning. All of the headlines very much concentrated still on what's going on in Iraq, and I'm going to read you a couple of them here. Let me just see what I can do. Here we are. Allies round on weak UK, front page of the Times. Miliband-led Trump war revolt. I mean, isn't that hilarious that Ed Miliband is the guy who is driving foreign policy in the United Kingdom, and he's the guy telling Keir Starmer that he has to find some kind of lawyer before he can actually go and do anything. You know, Starmer got up yesterday in Parliament and started talking about how, you know, until I was satisfied that there was no law being broken, I did not wish to commit ourselves to, you know, any kind of intensive action against Iran. The guy is so completely and utterly useless, right, that not only does he have no argument, but if you were a lawyer, you would say, well, hang on a minute. So 3 days ago, you said you're not going to get involved in the attack on Iran because it might be in breach of international law. But now you are going to be involved in attacks on Iran because it's not in breach of international law. I mean, it's so ridiculous, isn't it? Labour ensnared in China spy probe is the front page of the Mail. Some very dramatic pictures of the blowing up of an Iranian vessel somewhere off the coast of Sri Lanka, where Trump's submarine torpedoes Iran warship. And Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of State for Defense in America, saying that it's the first time that we've apparently seen a torpedo hit a boat since the Second World War. And I kept saying to myself, did we not see that in the Falkland Islands? But I'm not sure.
It's the Belgrano.
The Belgrano,
yeah.
But was the Belgrano not hit by...
torpedo.
Was it hit by a torpedo or was it hit by a strike from an airplane? I mean, I can't remember. Anyway, but I'm sure there'll be loads of you out there who took part in the sinking of the Belgrano, who were even serving as members of the armed forces in the Falklands War. So do let us know. Kemi Badenoch blast Starmer for being weak, front page of the Express. And front page of the Telegraph... I always want to call him Mazir Mahmood because he used to work for the News of the World, but it's not him. It's Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, apparently cracking down on asylum seekers, saying, if you come here and you try and hoodwink us, we will kick you out of the country. Nobody believes a word of it. Nobody thinks that she'll ever do anything like that. And she also says migrants must know at least a grasp of A-level English in order to be able to win the right to stay in this country. Everybody knows that's not going to work either. Completely utterly ridiculous. The Sun goes with a story about Manchester United footballer Harry Maguire. The Greek cops apparently wanted £50,000 of a bribe from him to stop prosecuting him. That's not particularly surprising. And the one story that I do think is extraordinary, which nobody's really talking much about, is that the chief of the Police Federation has been arrested on corruption charges. And it's not so much that he's been arrested on corruption charges that surprises me. It's the fact that he was being paid, apparently, about £700,000 a year as the head of the Police Federation. Which seems amazing, doesn't it? Absolutely extraordinary. We've got a poll going as well. Should we get the poll out there, Pooch? The poll is about, because it's International Book Day, World Book Day, sorry. Which is the best book? Is it Harry Potter? Is it the Kama Sutra? Is it 1984? Or is it the Bible? Some people have suggested that we should have put the Quran in there, but I was a bit worried some of you might set fire to it, and obviously knowing that you would get away with it. So far the Bible apparently is winning, I think, on 40%, and 1984 coming up with 35%. 1984, of course, supposedly a work of fiction, is now looking more and more like a work of non-fiction because it's all coming true. Anyway, listen, never mind all that. We're going to get to it. We're going to talk to Jamie Jenkins a little bit later on. Siobhan White, we're going to talk to as well, the mother of that young woman who was murdered by an asylum seeker. Jennifer Ewing joins us from Republicans Overseas as well. And we're also going to go over to Dubai and find out what the latest is from the British expat community. Rada Sterling is going to join us. Right now, though, let us say a very good morning to the boss of the Taxpayers Alliance, Mr. Elliot Keck. Very good morning, Elliot.
Morning.
Now, last time you were here, the government was in free fall, looking completely and utterly rudderless and absolutely and utterly useless. Funnily enough, we're still there. You know, nothing's changed, except that we've now had sort of even more opportunities to look at Keir Starmer and his hopeless, hapless reaction to what is going on in the Middle East.
Yeah, I think very difficult. Lots of things have gone wrong during this course of this government, and it's been difficult to identify what's the one thing they'll be remembered for, what's the one humiliation, what's the one scandal, what's the one catastrophe that will define them. And there's been a long list, but I think this one could be it, actually, because the one thing they've always said about Starmer is, oh, well, at least he's good at foreign affairs, well, at least he's very sensible, at least,
statesman.
At least he's a statesman. And yet here you have some of the UK's closest, most stalwart allies slamming him for the, I think, disgracefully slow speed and a disgracefully slow way that he responded to events in the Middle East. The fact that he refused to allow the United States to use military bases, the fact that he has been so slow in coming to the defence of Cyprus, Bahrain, the UAE, and others. And it's so humiliating for a country that was once a great power, a country that was once defined by standing up for its allies, even in the darkest moments, even in the darkest hour. We're now sat on our hands while at the same time some of our closest friends are being bombed.
Yes. And I mean, there's no question at all, is there, that America is going ahead and doing things which any sort of normal, pretty, shall we say, sure of themselves country is doing. I mean, yesterday I couldn't believe it when the reports started coming in about the torpedoing of this boat in the Indian Ocean, I guess, off the coast of Sri Lanka. And for all the world, the Sky News, the Guardian this morning's got 87 people dead. Kind of almost treating Iran as though it's some kind of normal country. Treating it as really though it hasn't threatened the entire world with carnage. It hasn't bankrolled terrorists every single place that they operate. The idea that we're having, and we'll hear from Christian Drogan later on from Watchmen, that they're having sort of vigils for the Ayatollah's death up and down the country in mosques. I find it incredible that people cannot see evil when they're looking right at it.
Yeah, listen, this is a regime that has been involved in terrorist attacks right across the world, including in the West, including the United Kingdom, involved in assassinations, involved in fomenting extreme sectarian plots and sectarian divisions. Of course, was largely responsible for the attack on Israel on October 7th, responsible for what Hezbollah have done to the Lebanese, what Assad did to the Syrians, and what's continuing to go on in Yemen and Iraq. It's definitely one of the most malign influences anywhere in the world. Yeah. I'm very pleased personally.
And it's not a debatable subject. No. There is no question that they.
I just look what they've done to their own people, killed tens of thousands of their own people in just the beginning of this year alone. Right. I'm quite pleased to see Trump take decisive action. I know that there are disputes, and some people want the United States to stay out of the Middle East. But now that that action has been taken, it was very, very clear immediately that the Iranians would start lashing out. They would start firing off their ballistic missiles. It was very clear they were going to aim at civilian populations. Right. It was very clear they were going to aim at British bases. Yes. It was very clear they were going to aim at countries that were not involved. And for it to take, I think it was 48 hours, was it? Or 36 hours? I think it was Sunday evening when Starmer finally gave approval to use British bases for defensive operations. It was only on Tuesday morning that he agreed for one of the UK's major destroyers or frigates to be sent to the Middle East. Right. That was 4 days on.
It now takes, apparently it's going to take 2 weeks
it's
for HMS Dragon to get
That's
there.
Right, yeah.
By which point it might be all over. It's completely ridiculous. Because again, we've said this many times in regard to other aspects of this government's inability to actually do its job. It's not just that they are getting it wrong, it's the fact that they are so incompetent and they get it wrong. That's the thing I think that surprises most people, because I think we've said this before, we all expected the Keir Starmer government not to be something that people from you and I's kind of perspective on politics would like. But we assumed that they would know what they were doing, where they actually don't know how to run the country.
Yeah, and I still assumed, even despite everything, that at a moment of genuine international crisis, that Starmer would be able to do the right thing. Yeah. And yet he seems to have this. I can even describe it sort of almost fetish for international law. He's so obsessed by it that he's willing to allow essentially a tool for evil empires to limit his own ability to act and limit his own ability to defend British interests, British citizens.
It completely stymies his ability to actually make any sense.
Yeah.
Because he's constantly looking around for a law. And I said this jokingly on Monday that, this is a guy who can't order a cup of tea without seeking the advice of a lawyer to go, I'm trying to make sure that I'm not breaching any international laws by asking for, some English breakfast tea because it might well be in breach of something that somebody said at the International Court of Justice, last week. It
could have colonial implications.
I mean, it tells you everything you need to know. Anyone who's been through a divorce, anyone who's been through a legal system where you've had to do anything at all with lawyers, would tell you, these are not people who should be running anything. They're very good at arguing things perhaps that are not true. They're quite good at getting you things that you probably don't deserve. They're also quite good at screwing everything up. But what they're not good at is understanding the truth or understanding, the way of the world.
Or acting on principle and being decisive.
Because everything is up for grabs, right?
And instead they would have spent days and days and days poring over precedent and poring over legal documents and treaties and all the rest of it. When at the same time, British citizens are being bombed from the skies by one of the most evil regimes to ever walk this earth. And I think if
and almost every major terrorist attack that's taken place in the world in the past, 25 years, you can look at Iran and go, they had some role. They had to have some role in that, whether it was bankrolling it directly or indirectly. They certainly had a role.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's have a look at Caroline Leavitt, because I think sometimes we need to seek solace from the likes of the Americans in order to see how government should be done. And there's a fantastic clip which I'm about to show you now. Caroline Leavitt came out and did a press conference yesterday in the White House briefing room, in which she once again launched herself, as she often does, at CNN and the media and what they've got wrong. Have a look at this.
For these families. Given what Secretary Hegseth said this morning, is it the position of this administration that the press should not prominently cover the deaths of U.S. service members?
No, it's the position of this administration that the press in this room and the press across the country should accurately report on the success of Operation Epic Fury and the damage it is doing to the rogue Iranian regime that has threatened the lives of every single American in this room. If the Iranian regime had their choice, they would kill every single person in this room. And so we can all be very grateful that we have an administration and that we have men and women in our armed forces who are willing to sacrifice their own lives for the rest of us in this room and for every American across the country and for every troop that is based in the Middle East. That's what these...
Hegseth was complaining that it was front page news about these 6 service members who were killed.
That's not what the Secretary said, Caitlin, and that's not what the Secretary meant, and you know it. You know you are being disingenuous. There is not... We've never had a Secretary of Defense who cares more...
Drones get through or tragic things happen. It's front page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad.
Yeah,
As you know, we cover the deaths of U.S. service members under every president.
The press does only want to make the president look bad. That's a fact. Especially you. No, listen to me. Especially you and especially CNN. And the Secretary of Defense cares deeply about our war fighters and our men and women in uniform. He travels all across this country to meet with them, to connect with them, and your network has hardly ever probably reported on that. You also had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Chairman Kane, who's a brave patriot, standing alongside the Secretary at the Pentagon this morning, again expressing his condolences to these families. And I just told you that the President of the United States will be attending their dignified transfer. So please,
that's not making the president look bad. That's showcasing that.
We expect you to cover that as you should. We expect you to cover that as you should, Caitlin. But you and your network know that you take every single thing this administration says and tries to use it to make the president look bad. That is an objectable fact.
I don't think covering troop deaths is trying to make the
If you're trying to argue right now that CNN's overwhelming coverage is not negative of President Donald Trump, I think the American people would tend to agree, and your ratings would tend to disagree with that as well. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. On the school strike, back to that for a minute. I understand that the U.S. does not target.
I mean, that is what a great woman she is. Like Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary. We don't have anyone like that, Elliot, do we? And in fact, I'm not even sure if we have a press secretary at the moment, do we?
No, I don't think there's any staff in number 10 at all. I think it's just sort of Keir Starmer,
rattling about. Yeah, because no chief of staff. Because Ellie, what's his face? Morgan McSweeney. Morgan McSweeney's gone.
Yeah, Tim Allen resigned.
Tim Allen resigned as head of communications.
Person,
So there's no head of communications.
Yeah.
So they are literally a rudderless ship. So Starmer's waking up in the morning going, all these guys that I used to go to speak to before I made any kind of protestation about the world are not here. Yeah. So what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah, it's just Keir Starmer sort of roving the halls, reading the UN Charter of Human Rights
moving
over and over again.
Around.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a picture of Churchill. Better take that down.
Yeah, take that one down. And
complete and utter, absolute tosser. Let's go to some super chats because we're getting some corrections on the old torpedo front. Timothy says HMS Conqueror sunk the Belgrano using a torpedo. Well, see, this is typical of the Americans, right? So Pete Hegseth, who I've got nothing against, the American history is basically written by Americans, and they don't understand anything that doesn't involve America. So it's like, if it wasn't America who fired a torpedo, then they'll say this is the first torpedo since the Second World War. I like you having the freedom to swear when necessary. Your show, your rules, says Howard. What about the one just before that, the super chat, which was this? The Belgrano was hit by a sub. That submarine returned to Britain and was flying the Jolly Roger when it arrived, says Lou. Well, of course, famously, the Sun headline, Gotcha, which was not written by Kelvin Mackenzie, actually, but we might talk to him about it when we have him back in, which might be tomorrow, was written by somebody called Wendy Henry. And when the Belgrano sank, the first edition of The Sun went out with the headline, Gotcha, and a picture of the boat going down in flames. And then, for some reason, they sort of thought better of it. And by the time the third edition came out, they changed it to something slightly less, horrible.
Isn't it interesting?
It was a great headline.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the headlines that probably defines the Thatcher premiership, right? That moment of decisiveness, and people have quibbled over international law since, and whether it was an act of competence. But most of the British people, they just remember a decisive prime minister that took action when British lives were at risk. And now you look at the front pages this morning, and it's some of our closest allies, people like Cyprus, that have military bases on UK soil, that have British citizens living there, and they're attacking Starmer for taking so long to come to their aid.
They're not happy
it's
about
such a contrast.
It is a contrast because Starmer has dilly-dallied. He has done everything to kind of prevent himself from committing himself and his country. And I mean, even yesterday, and I'm not sure if we've got this particular clip from Prime Minister's questions, he actually said in Parliament, I was not willing to join in the attack on Iran until I was satisfied that it was not in some way in breach of international law. I'm sorry, when you're the Prime Minister, you don't do things because of your own self-belief. You do things because you're doing it for the good of the country. You should not be saying, well, unless you convince me personally, unless you tell me personally that you're not in breach of international law, I'm not doing it. He doesn't, to me, he's like a football manager, right? He should be in charge of the country because we've elected him to be in charge of the country. Well, I haven't, but, some people did. But what he is not is the owner of the country. What he is not is the man who decides where Britain goes for the rest of its life. What he is a manager who should be managing the economy, managing the political kind of reality of the country, and managing our foreign policy as it seems appropriate at the time. What he shouldn't be doing is going, well, it's up to me to decide what to do. No, it isn't, actually.
Yeah, and if one of his best mates is on the team and isn't playing very well, you need to take him off.
Take him off,
and because that's for the good of the
team. You
don't
go, Lord Hermit, you carry on playing outside left.
Exactly,
even though you haven't made a cross for about 5 weeks.
Yeah. And if international law is not serving the interest of the country, if he's waking up and his first thought is not what's in the best interest of this country, rather than what's in the best interest of an international legal framework that's going to give me a job when I leave. And of course, I think that's possibly one of the things he's thinking. He's thinking, I'd quite like a job at the United Nations after I get kicked out of office in a few months' time.
Yeah, I'm sure he would like a job at the United Nations.
But it's very clear that the British national interest is not the first thing in his mind.
No.
And that's an absolute disaster.
No. Well, there are clearly two things foremost in his mind. One, appeasing the Muslim community, because we saw yesterday he appeared at this iftar in Parliament, which he organised, and he had all these Muslim leaders. And one of the clips that we showed yesterday to Stephen Barrett, which was particularly odious, was of somebody kind of coming up to him and hugging him and sort of almost caressing
stroking him.
Turns out to be the Palestinian ambassador, who we alone in European parlance have given an office to in London.
Representative, I think, better than ambassador.
Well, but apparently there's a Palestinian embassy.
Yeah,
right?
well, it's because we recognise the Palestinian state.
And as people said to me after we showed the clip yesterday and they were looking at it last night, have a look at this sort of endeavour and see which one of these two men has the power.
It's a power trip,
very clearly the Palestinian guy, who is more or less kind of, treating Keir Starmer like his little pet.
Yeah, like a supplicant.
Yeah.
It was embarrassing.
Really embarrassing. And now...
West Streeting, if you want.
Oh, yeah, let's have a look at West Streeting, because West Streeting, similarly, sort of placated the Muslim community by making a similar speech to Keir Starmer's at the same iftar.
And I think what we have seen in recent days is age-old racism that I thought we had consigned to the 1970s and the 1980s. Basically saying that if you don't look like me, even if you were born here, you can't really be British. That is just about the most un-British thing I can think of. How dare people in this country fly our country's flag, whether it's the St George's flag of England or the Union flag of the United Kingdom, and say that flag belongs to people who look like me, but not people who look like the Home Secretary of our country, the Mayor of this city, or many people here this evening. All of us have a responsibility to stand against that kind of hatred and discrimination.
Why are Labour politicians so racist? Why are they always talking about skin colour when nobody else is? Why is he trying to make out that the biggest problem in this country is racism caused by white people? Why are they doing that?
I think as you mentioned, they're terrified of that voter base. And they've seen them, they were humiliated in Gorton and Denton. West Streeting has got a majority of about 500. I mean, he clang on for dear life at the last election.
Right.
And they're basically captives of a pretty small community in the UK. A community that's becoming far more politically active, far more politically engaged, is starting to think about voting for different parties.
Also, they've already lost them, by the way. As you mentioned in Gorton Denton, and we'll talk about the MPs dancing in a minute, which is another bloody ridiculous story. But it's very clear that the Greens have basically nicked that ground from which Labour thought they could launch themselves into the next millennium.
Yeah, but I think Labour have lost every group of voters, right? Yeah. So they have to start somewhere. They have to try and win someone back. I don't know who is voting Labour anymore. The fact that
maybe they could go for dwarfs or something. Or some other group of people that they haven't thought about yet.
But Labour have no one left, really. They don't have a constituency. They don't have a voter base.
No.
I can't see why anybody would vote Labour now, unless maybe you're on benefits. They've been very good to benefit claimants. But again, there's not enough of those.
Yeah, but they can't get up early enough to make it to the polling station. And what's the time? It's 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Oh, the polling station's shut.
You're
not going to quite get there. But I mean, the other thing that is on the front page of this morning, front page of the Telegraph, trying to sort of work out and delineate why Keir Starmer got it so wrong on Iran, and so wrong as being part of an international community of what he would call the coalition of the willing. Front page of the Telegraph says that basically it was Ed Miliband's fault, who led a cabinet opposition to US military action in Iran and the use of Britain's bases. And Britain has ended up looking really, really stupid here, because I said this yesterday. If Starmer had stuck to his policy and stuck to the guns and said, right, I'll tell you what, we're not going to get involved, a bit like Spain. We're not going to let you use our bases. We're not going to let you join us in your action against Iran because we think it's illegal. Fine, if he'd wanted to stick to that, but then suddenly 2 days later, he's gone, oh, well now, because they behaved so abominably, we're going to join you in your fight. So it's kind of like, when he said yesterday in Parliament, the special relationship is intact because we're doing this, and this. And you went, well, hang on, 2 days ago, you weren't doing any of that.
Yeah, I don't know why he's listening to the most brain-dead member of the cabinet. I mean, Ed Miliband, his opposition was probably because he found out that they were going, it's possible that if they bombed Iran, they might hit a solar farm or something like that. And, this is a man who's made it his life's goal to drive up energy prices in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, well, he's been successful in that.
He's been very successful at that. Shredding British industry, despite the fact he's actually from, a northern town that, with an industrial heritage. And then they all seem shocked when British industry suddenly is decimated. When Ed Miliband, I'm afraid, is the author of a lot of this stuff. He's the guy driving through net zero, despite the fact that even a lot of left-wing politicians now around the world are starting to ditch net zero.
Well,
look at Mark Carney in Canada.
Even before,
the globalist in chief.
Exactly. Even before the crisis in the Middle East, people were starting to question whether it was sensible to completely and utterly leave fossil fuel behind.
Yeah.
When we're not quite ready to make the transition, particularly in this country where we literally don't have enough electricity to go around already. But we're going to have data farms, we're going to have all sorts of data centres, we're going to have more people driving electric cars, we're not going to have enough electricity. They're still saying we're going to get rid of fossil fuels. But now, even more ridiculously, as the gas prices are rising, as petrol prices are going up at the pumps, they're still saying, we've got to... I was listening this morning actually to the BBC, I don't know why, it's driving me insane, driving in, and this woman who was in charge of some kind of... think tank about fuel and about energy prices generally was going on and on and on about how important it was to be sustainable. And you're going, no, what's important is that we've got enough fuel to put in our cars, fuel to put in our planes, fuel to fire up the energy business of Britain, and fuel to make sure we keep the bleeding lights on. Yeah,
we have the most expensive energy in the world, and we should be tapping up every single resource that is available, in particular oil and gas, because I'm afraid wind power is unbelievably expensive.
Yeah.
You look at where wind farms have to be, right? Offshore wind farms, you're talking about hundreds of miles away from population centres. You have to transport that energy from that wind farm to that population centre. It's unbelievably expensive.
And you can't store it, right?
Yeah, well, that's even more expensive.
If you do generate it, and you don't use it, it's wasted, isn't it?
Yeah, unless you pay for these extremely expensive batteries. Solar, Aberdeen didn't have sun for something like 2 months on end. Solar is a completely non-starter in the United Kingdom. We didn't see sun for the whole of January and February. It's complete nonsense. And yet we're importing gas and oil from Norway from fields that we could also be mining. So we're letting other countries mine our own gas and oil fields and then purchasing it off them. It's complete insanity.
It is.
And yet Keir Starmer is listening to Ed Miliband. He's happy to have him around the cabinet table, advising him on what to do about international affairs. It's completely mad.
Well, it seems as though Keir Starmer listens to all the wrong people.
Yeah, that's right.
Refuses point blank to listen to the public who actually put him in his job.
Yeah.
He seems to think he knows best. As I say, I was really affronted when he came out yesterday and said, until I'm satisfied that it's not a breach of international law. It's nothing to do with you, mate. Yeah. It's nothing to do with your opinion. We didn't hire you as a lawyer. We're not paying you, every 15 minutes to come up with some great strategy. What we're doing is giving you permission to manage the country for a period of 4 years or possibly 5, hopefully less, until such time as things improve. It's absolutely extraordinary. But how about this, right? In the midst of all of this, in the midst of, what people are referring to as the sort of the prelim to World War III, while energy prices skyrocket, while this country's reputation internationally becomes more and more, derisory, here's what MPs decided they thought would be a good idea to do. A bit of dancing.
Here we go, we're going to turn. Human breaks. Cha-cha-cha. 2 and 3 and cha-cha-cha. 2, 3, 4 more. 2 and 3 and 1 more. 2 and 3 and start again. Step, step, cha-cha. You ought to just go best on me. Very good. Cha-cha-cha. 2, 3, New York. And 2, 3, very good. Lovely arms. 2, 3, cha-cha. 1 more. Turn around. Let's finish it. 2 and 3 and 4. 2 and 3 and cha-cha. 1 more. Let's do 1 more for fun. 2, 3, cha-cha. 3, very good. 2.
I don't know what you say about that, really. You see Hannah Spencer has got straight in on the act. She was her first day in Parliament, and she's busy dancing with the Strictly people. I don't know what that bloke in the red dress was doing, and with no arms. Anyway, sorry, that's probably wrong of me to say. But what are they thinking? Almost every single reaction to all of that is people going, they've just given themselves a 5% pay rise. They're all about to make £110,000 a year. The world is on the brink of all sorts of, terrible things. And there they are, seemingly just having a good time.
Yeah, it's Nero.
How tone deaf is that?
Yeah, it's Nero sat in his palace as Rome burns, isn't it? Playing the lute or whatever he was doing in that famous Roman story. Yeah, I genuinely cannot believe that it happened. I mean, Lindsay Hoyle's a speaker, generally seems like he's got his head screwed on. Why on earth?
I don't know. I think
not.
He is one of the most arrogant people who has ever walked the corridors.
He does enjoy a foreign travel, doesn't he?
He loves the trip to Nevis.
He likes the Four Seasons.
He loves the Four Seasons. He loves the trip to Nevis to spread democracy across the world.
That's true.
As long as they've got room service.
How he hasn't just thought, maybe let's delay this.
Yeah.
The world is literally on fire, and we're doing the tango.
This is maybe not something we should be publicising.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's all over the papers.
It's
in every single newspaper. It's all over the news. And everyone, without exception, I think, is going, this is really not something you should be doing.
No, do it the week before Christmas or something, where people sort of understand that it's slightly more lighthearted.
Yeah.
We literally face one of the biggest international crises since, certainly since probably 9/11 in Iraq, right? And yet they're doing the waltz with people from Strictly Come Dancing. I mean, it's extraordinary. And also off the back of this 5% pay rise, which was pretty jaw-dropping. I mean, this is an inflation-busting pay rise. This is way higher than pay rises in the private sector. It's even higher than actually a lot of the pay rises coming in the public sector. And as you said, it's going to be 110 grand by the end of the Parliament. And it's not entirely clear for what. One of the things that with the Taxpayers Alliance think they should be doing is just linking MPs' pay to GDP per capita, i.e. average living standards. If they'd done that since 2010, their pay would actually be £12,000 lower because living standards has not improved for the last 10, 15 years.
Well, your girl, whose name I've forgotten for the moment, is it Anne Strickland?
Anne Strickland,
who was brilliant. She put out, which we played yesterday, she put out a great video in which
Absolutely,
she said, if growth per capita is going down, then they should not be getting a pay rise.
Absolutely, that should
because if we're all getting poorer, so should they.
Yeah.
And I think that makes perfect sense to me.
They're insulated from their own decisions is the problem, right? They're all spending money like there's no tomorrow. That drives up inflation. Inflation makes everyone poorer, except their pay rise is above inflation, so they're insulated from it.
Exactly.
They're not worried about increasing house prices. They get a second home, council tax,
and
etc.
And they claim for their
energy bills.
They claim for energy bills and all the rest of it. They claim for all sorts of other expenses. I mean, I looked at Ed Davies' expenses the other day after he came out and sort of had a go at Isabel Oakeshott, as if she was the reason that the world is actually going to war. And it turns out he's claiming in excess of about £335,000 a year to run an office.
Yeah.
And I know that he'll say, well, that's because I've got to pay salaries to all these people. But exactly what are they achieving? We don't have that kind of money. We should say to Ed Davey, you know what? Get rid of all those people who work in your office. Get rid of your office because you're not doing anything. You don't achieve anything. Nobody cares.
Just go.
Nobody cares what you think. You don't need to do any research. You talk absolute bollocks every time you open your mouth.
Yeah.
So just bugger off.
He shouldn't need 6 members of staff for that.
Save the state and save the taxpayer 300,000 quid.
Yeah, I mean, he shouldn't need 6 members of staff to come up with some of the stuff that he says.
No. I mean, 6 members of staff to go, how about this? Why don't you go on a jet ski and fall in the water? Okay, then, that's worth 300,000 a year, isn't it? Finally, got this from Olivia, who says, I've been trying to order heating oil for the last 2 days, and now I can't order any. It's already gone up massively in price, but you can't actually now order it, which tells you that there's maybe a shortage coming. Yeah. I mean, I think we're going to be seeing some really, really worrying things, particularly, as we said, petrol prices. Yeah. And yet one of the maddest things that the government is surely doing is they're going to increase fuel duty by 5p every litre. Great. And that's coming, I think, this September. Will be phased into next March. And it was remarkable that Rachel Reeves didn't stand up on Tuesday and say, everything in my spring statement that the OBR has given me is now wrong. It's been superseded by events. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to increase defence spending. We're going to cut welfare spending because we cannot afford £400 billion on welfare. So we're going to increase defence spending, cut welfare spending. We're not going to increase fuel duty, and we're definitely not going to take a pay rise for MPs. Right. She could have done those 4 things, shown a little bit of leadership, shown a bit of character. Instead, she talks about how she'd restored economic stability and how they were going to bring down inflation. It's just embarrassing, really embarrassing. And also sort of sitting around laughing. Complete fairy tales. And laughing at the comments being made by the opposition benches, which was also a really, really bad look, I have to say. Let's have a look at what Donald Trump thinks about the windmill scenario in this country and how ridiculous this country has become.
For China, they make all the windmills. China makes all the windmills. The only problem is they don't have wind farms. You ever think somebody's going to have to look at that? How many wind farms have you seen lately in China? They make the windmills. They sell them to the suckers over in Europe. Europe is buying them by the thousands. And I told them for 3 years, this is not going to work out well. And now they're saying I was right.
I mean, he's been playing a blinder, hasn't he, this week, Donald Trump? I mean, he really has been very, very smart. And I see that just 2 days ago, when he was having a go at Starmer for not being Churchill, he also had a go at Spain, who apparently wouldn't help him either. And he said, right, we're just going to stop doing business with Spain. We're just not going to do any trade with them at all. They've apparently now buckled under and have agreed to let Trump into their kind of air bases. So, again, he's won.
Yeah, and listen, he's being decisive, right? That's the thing we talked about. You know, you can never tell the future, right? You can never know how people are going to look back in 50 years at major geopolitical decisions that a president or a prime minister makes. But the key thing is you have to pick a strategy, you have to move on it, and you have to be decisive. And you can't have Keir Starmer sort of, you know, in tears over whether or not he's in breach of international law. You need to decide, is this in the national interest of my country? And if it is, you need to take that decision. And I think Trump, certainly on Iran, I think on Venezuela as well, has generally done that. And my guess is that in 50 to 100 years' time, people will forget about, you know, some of the occasionally crazy things that Trump has said during his time as president, and they'll remember some of the big decisions that he made. And I think they'll be looked back upon as the correct ones in a lot of cases.
I think there's no question about that. Lisa says this: I wish Mike would let this bloke speak for more than 30 seconds. So annoying. It's amazing what people hear, isn't it?
That's weird.
Isn't it weird? I mean, I thought I'd been letting you speak.
Yeah.
Have you got any complaints about the
No,
fact that you
definitely
come on
not.
here?
No.
So, Lisa, I don't know what drugs you're on, but I would change your prescription if
There's
I
a
were you.
back and forth. It's good.
Well, that's the whole point. You know, it's called a debate and a conversation. The other thing, a bit of breaking news that's coming from Charlotte. South East Water has apparently been fined £22 million after repeated supply failures, which again will make no difference at all because they'll pay the fine, because from their perspective, it's better to pay the fines that they keep getting than it is to actually repair the system, which allows billions and billions of litres of water to leak into the ground literally every minute of the day.
Yeah, it's just all part of Britain's sort of rotting, decaying infrastructure, isn't it?
Yeah.
People have been let down in almost every area.
Yeah, absolutely shocking. So, I mean, in terms of the coming days and weeks, we've got Keir Starmer once again surviving something that we never thought he would survive.
Yeah.
We've got a ship, HMS Dragon, on its way to the Mediterranean. It will get there sometime a week on Friday or something. I just can't see how he's still sitting there. I just don't understand it. We're told that come the May elections, he'll be gone. But I'm beginning to wonder now if he really won't leave then.
Yeah. Every week there's going to be, I'm going to sort of leave here thinking, is he going to be here next time I'm here? And he's starting to look like a bit of a survivor, isn't he? He's a bit like the Black Knight in Monty Python, you know, just a flesh wound.
Right.
You know, he's lost all 4 limbs and his sort of head's hanging off his neck.
But he's completely irrelevant now.
Yeah.
Internationally irrelevant, diplomatically irrelevant. You know, in the country, it would seem everybody hates him. He's the most unpopular Prime Minister of all time.
Yeah. And he doesn't even have any staff in Downing Street.
And now nobody wants to work for him.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's extraordinary.
He's just sat by himself in a Downing Street flat.
I mean, I try not to get depressed about the state of our nation, but it really is quite awful, isn't it?
It's bleak, yeah. It's really bleak.
Bleak. That's a word. That is a word. Elliot Keck, ladies and gentlemen, from the Taxpayers Alliance. I try to shut him up every 20 seconds because that's obviously my strategy to make sure.
Probably wise.
Hey?
I'll fade his mic down.
Just fade him down, yeah, exactly right. Pooch been there in the background. Elliot, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Taxpayers Alliance doing a brilliant job holding this government to account because somebody needs to do it. We will be talking coming up to a whole host of great guests, including Jamie Jenkins coming up after the news at 8 o'clock. Right now, though, let's just get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. The escalating Middle East conflict dominates UK headlines today, with Prime Minister Keir Starmer insisting the protection of over 130,000 British nationals in the region remains the government's top priority amid ongoing US and Israeli strikes on Iran and Iranian retaliatory actions. The UK has allowed limited US use of British bases, but is not directly joining offensive operations. Defence Secretary John Healey confirmed the UK's terror threat level is under active review following the strikes, while Foreign Secretary concerns grow over risks to UK troops and civilians. President Trump has publicly criticised Starmer's approach, calling him no Winston Churchill and straining transatlantic ties. Elsewhere, Chancellor Richard III highlighted inflation forecasts averaging 2.3% for 2026. though growth projections were downgraded. In sports, and Arsenal extended their Premier League lead with a win over Brighton. More details throughout the day. Later's Tigers.
The news, couple of things to say to you. One of the things that we announced yesterday, and do you know what? Actually, I also want to say this to you, Pooch. Partly because of the fact that my son is staying with me, and partly because of my just general kind of ineptitude, I try and pick out my shirt and tie combination the night before I go to bed, in order so that I don't have to put too many lights on in the morning. Yeah. And I thought I'd picked a completely different tie. I'm wearing a completely different... I haven't worn this tie for ages, right? Because it's kind of greenish. And I thought I was picking out a bluish tie to go with this today. Yeah. It looks all right. I don't really mind it.
We've both got the same colour shirt on.
Oh, yeah, we have. Yeah, absolutely. Pooch there showing me the pink shirt. So, and I was cursing my son this morning because... as I was getting ready to go out, it's one of those things where you try and like coordinate the lights, right? So I've got the bathroom light on when I'm obviously, having a shower. Then I put that light off. Then I go back into the bedroom and I have that light on. And then shortly before I leave, I have to put the light on in the hallway so that I can see to get out and lock the door and all that. And so at certain points, there's no lights at all. And so I put the light off in the bedroom before I put the light on in the hallway. And I picked up my briefcase to carry it out. And it was upside down and everything fell out of it. And I was like, and I was trying really desperately hard not to wake him up, the boy, because he was out a bit late last night. But anyway, never mind that. So here I am wearing a slightly different coloured tie. I hope you don't mind it. Because I've got another tie in my post bag, which is what I was going to do here, right? So another heron tie, which is very nice. And this comes from some lovely people in Suffolk, Pauline and Andy Davis. This is with a dark cloud hovering over the UK, just a little something to brighten your day. We honestly hope you have it, Mike. Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Pauline and Andy. That's lovely. Also, I should say, I've got to make a correction to something that I announced that I got the other day, because this has happened before, where I've actually ended up thanking the wrong person, right? So, for example, let me see if I can find it. Hang on a second. It's National Book Day, by the way. Let me see if I can find it here. Because I keep thanking the wrong people, right? This one comes from, where are we? I should have really got this together before. Oh yeah, this is from Linda, right? It's nice to see you wearing the tie that I sent you. However, the name you are mentioning, Frederick Thomas, is the supplier from Etsy. And do you remember, Pooch, when I said I'd mentioned the wrong people, Etsy? Yeah. And Etsy apparently is some kind of online, I don't know, marketing company, shop or something like that. So my apologies, Linda. So thank you for the lovely tie. And that was the tie that I think I wore last Thursday for Plank of the Week, which is it's quite a sort of elegant heron tie. It's got like little tiny herons on it. So I wore that. I've also got from Deborah in Bur. So officially that's the one, yeah. So that's the one that came. And because it said on it, Frederick Thomas ties, I just assumed it was from Frederick Thomas. Because, I'm a simple creature. So, Linda, thank you for pointing that out. So if I do end up thanking the wrong people, my apologies. Just send a little correction to Substack. Because as we said yesterday, if you're a Substack member, we are now spending a lot more time. We've got a dedicated member of our team to watch over you and to make sure that if you've got any complaints or you've got any problems, you will be listened to and you will have a solution hopefully supplied to you over the course of time. This one from Deborah in Birmingham, who sent a lovely coaster, which I'm going to hold up like that. Is that good? Can you see that? Look at that. There's a heron on it. It says The Mike Graham Show. She's made it by herself. I make arts and crafts, and I've sent you this drinks coaster. If it gets sticky, don't immerse it in water. It's been treated with strong varnish. You can clean it with a damp cloth and buffed with furniture polish. Good luck with the show. Deborah in Birmingham, thank you. So, as I say, we're going to try and just open things as we go to make sure that we all feel very, very warm and fuzzy about it all. Also, what I wanted to say to you was this. We now have bumper stickers, right? I'm going to show you one here. Because obviously everybody wants one. Here it is, The Mike Graham Show. A bumper sticker that you can stick on anything you like. I mean, it's adhesive. You can stick it on a car, or you can stick it on your fridge, or you can stick it on the back of your husband's, barber, if you want. And what I'm going to say to you is this is how you get one, because we had to think long and hard about how to do this. And basically what we want you to do is to send a stamped, addressed envelope, okay, in order for you to get it for free. So what you've got to do is get a size C5 is the size you need, which is not difficult. It's not an unusual size. It's basically that size. So it's like that, right? That sort of size. I know that you might not be able to see that. And here's the address. It's the Mike Graham Show, P.O. Box 257, Battle, East Sussex, TN33 3FS. So the Mike Graham Show, P.O. Box 257, Battle, East Sussex, TN33 3FS. Please do send a stamped addressed envelope there, and we will send you out a free bumper sticker. Now, the only wrinkle to this is that if you're listening to us from another country, we can't really do it internationally. So what we would ask you to do is, if you're in fact able to find somebody in Britain who's a friend of yours, get them to send a stamped addressed envelope, and then they can forward it to you, because we can't really do it any other way, I'm afraid. So if you are living abroad, and we know we've got lots of listeners in Cambodia, in Canada, in the Middle East, in Hong Kong, in America, in South America, in Thailand, in Vietnam, and all sorts of places, I realise that you probably would want one of these, but there really isn't any way for us to do it unless you can get somebody in Britain to get a stamped addressed envelope to us. We can send it to them, and they can send it on to you. That would be the best thing to do. But anyway, there we are. Now, let us go internationally, because that's what we're about to do. And we're going to go to Dubai, because, of course, one of the things that we've been talking about over the course of the last few days is how Brits who are visiting Dubai and the Middle East are getting on, how they're getting home. There was supposed to be a flight leaving Oman yesterday evening, which ended up not leaving, apparently. And we're going to talk now to Rada Sterling, who is, of course, somebody we've spoken to before about some of the problems that sometimes British expats have while they're dealing with the authorities in places like Dubai. Rada, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, very well indeed. Thanks very much for talking to us. One of the things that I suppose we are all quite in awe of, I guess, is the attitude of an awful lot of Brits in Dubai who are saying, well, it's been a bit of a tricky couple of days, but actually we love living here. We're not really wanting to move back to Britain. We still think Dubai is a safer place to live than anywhere else in the world, and we're not moving.
So it's interesting, actually, and from this end as well, because we're getting a lot of calls from people looking to get out of the country, but also a lot of messages from people who are just sticking it out and want to get on with their lives. And I'd say, you've got 50% of the people wanting to stay on and just get through this period. They have faith that it will be resolved quickly, and they just want to move on with their lives. And I think what we have to look at with that sector of people is that the incentives of living in the UAE and being in a sort of minimal tax society are so attractive that people will put up with other issues as well just to stay under that system. And I think there's lessons to be learned by the West. He is absolutely almost harassing citizens out of the country to the point where, it's just too difficult to live in the UK, and people will continue to put up with, a war even, and missiles landing before returning to the UK under the current regime with the current rules. So that's interesting. Yeah. And then on the other hand, we have, I have people ringing up and they're crying, and they're on the other end of the phone with children in the background, just desperate to get out. They are expats, but they under no circumstances ever wanted to be, in a position with young children and missiles going overhead with promises from Iran that it's only going to increase. And, they've got their good arsenal coming. This is just their old stuff. So, with those sorts of threats and buildings on fire, airports being bombed, embassies and so on. And, they're getting messages every couple of hours, take shelter, incoming missiles. And I think for a lot of parents, that's really concerning. I think you'll find a lot of young people just being brave and, taking this as an opportunity to expand their following on social media platforms and, have a bit of excitement in their lives for a moment. But then you've got people with young children who are actually freaking out. There's fires, there's missile damage of apartments.
The people I speak to say actually life is pretty decent at the moment in Dubai. They're not feeling under attack particularly. My daughter lives there actually now, and she said, the streets are relatively empty. A lot of people are not going to work or they're staying at home. The traffic's better than it normally is, and to be honest, they've got such a good defensive kind of domes type scenario going on that generally speaking, most people are not too bothered. And I've not heard from anyone who I know who lives there who wants to leave.
I have got many calls, many emails from people looking for help from us to get out of the country. They're struggling to get flights, and they're hoping to maybe cross a border, see where else they can get a flight out of, or what the embassy can do to lift a travel ban. There's people there stuck over a £10,000 landlord debt with a travel ban on them, so they can't leave the country, and they want to under these circumstances. Their families are worried. We have people in prison. We have their families freaking out that they can't decide how to shelter themselves. They just have to hope for the best. So I think on the one hand you do have people saying life is normal, life is good, but actually the streets are empty, people are afraid, or some people, and I would say again it's sort of 50-50. I believe, but there are people who are worried that yes, the defences are good, we're quite impressed so far, that's great, but all it takes is one or two missiles to hit your building and that's you gone. So there's also
but that's not happening,
that attitude.
But that's not really happening, is it?
Well, you have an embassy on fire, you have fires at airport, you have casualties, and you have people, whether or not it's happened yet, you do have people who are afraid. And again, it comes down to 50-50, it's subjective. So people who, have one attitude about London as well, saying, actually, you walk out the door in London, you're perfectly safe, this is all propaganda. And then you have the others saying, actually, crime has risen. So again, with Dubai, you're going to have that 50-50 feeling when it comes to how threatened an individual feels under these circumstances. I don't know how I would feel being in Dubai, knowing that there's missiles going overhead, and knowing that Dubai is actually a target, and civilian targets too. I'd also be a little worried in London right now that you might have terror cells being activated.
Yeah, well, that's, I'm afraid, modern life. I mean, I grew up in London in the 70s when the IRA were blowing us up every sort of couple of weeks. And you just kind of deal with it, because you can't do anything else. Life goes on. And if you are living in a foreign country where you're not really in control at all of what the government does or what, the people are like, that's one of the prices that you have to pay. And I think it's kind of, as I say, I've been quite pleasantly surprised, I suppose, by most people's reaction to it, which is, well, we'll just have to ride this out until it gets a bit better. And if there's any place that's going to protect us maybe better than Western Europe is, it may be Dubai. And it might be that that's partly because it is a bit of an authoritarian state where they can immediately sort of shut things down in a way that perhaps in Britain or in Western Europe we can't.
Not only that, I mean, you have the UAE authorities also threatening people in Dubai that if they take photographs or share online information that's negative against the government or is potentially misinformation, whether that's a reshared news story or otherwise, they can end up with 2 years in prison. Yeah. So it's not that we're necessarily going to get anyone who's actually afraid and scared and, citing issues that they have with the missiles and the way that the government's dealing with it in Dubai. They're not allowed, and that includes journalists. So I think for the moment, you're only going to be getting influencers, you're going to be getting, a lot of positivity out there, which might be good. That might actually be good for keeping people calm. But at the same time, we're not necessarily getting all sides of the story here, because other people who would like to perhaps share how they feel about it or what they're seeing on the ground might not be able to for fear of imprisonment.
Yeah, we've got messages coming in now. One here from Swordfish 9430 saying Virgin Atlantic has just taken off from Dubai, destination London, according to Flight Radar 24. So, like a lot of these situations, I guess, things will return to normal and there will be bumps in the road, I guess, from time to time. in the same way that if you were to live in, I don't know, Hong Kong, very, very happily for a few years, and then suddenly the Chinese take over, and you kind of go, I better not get out of hand in a bar at 2 o'clock in the morning. I might find myself in a Chinese prison for the rest of my life. I mean, it's one of these sort of, I lived in New York for 10 years back in the 80s, which was relatively, easy to do. But you also, you're in a foreign country. You know that as a foreigner, you kind of have to behave in a slightly different way.
I think, if it's resolved quickly and if the threat of missiles is resolved quickly, and it looks like it very well may be, I think the US strikes have been very efficient and effective. So if that cleans up quickly and people don't perceive that the threat is going to be ongoing, it should recover very quickly. I think if the threat is prolonged, I think we are going to see a bit of an exodus of expats. I'm already seeing it. I'm already seeing clients of ours leaving. Already, a large community has decided to at least vacate for the next couple of months until we see stability again. But if it's resolved quickly, I don't see any sort of economic long-term impact. If it goes on, we could see the tourism sector hurt. We could see, loss of employment. We could see the results of that being people travel banned over debts and so on, like we did in 2008, 2009. So it is important it's resolved quickly. I think that the positive attitude is obviously for those in that situation. It's great, and presumably things will be back to normal very quickly. I think that, they have been effective, obviously, at defending the country. But at the same time, most people didn't sign up to be under those circumstances or in those circumstances while in a very small location in Dubai and a quiet location and, with children in school. So there's also that to think about.
Yeah, but I think people should then take that on board and maybe learn from that experience that other people are having currently, that, if you do want to go and live in another country, there are lots of things that you have to think about. It might not be obvious at the time, but you have to have some expectation that life might be very, very different if something else happens. I mean, I remember going to Dubai back in May of last year and looking across the sea, which was so warm it was like swimming in soup, and I thought to myself, that's Iran over there. And I thought, that's a bit close, to be honest. You know what I mean? It's kind of, it's not something I would want to necessarily do. I like living in Britain as much as I moan and groan about it, because I feel as though it's my home. I have some control over who runs it, maybe not as much as I would like. But, we have elections, we have the ability to criticise the government, we have all of those kind of, human rights that we like to support, and we like to make sure that we continue to enjoy. But when you go to another country, and I would say the same thing even about America. I used to drive around in America, and I thought to myself, if I get done for speeding in Texas and I get pulled over by the cops, I'm not going to start having a go at them in the same way that I might do in this country, because they might shoot me, And there's a sort of inevitability of reality that you have to kind of think about. And I think if you've gone to Dubai with your kids and your family and you haven't had any expectation that things might be actually very different from living in Surbiton, then you're a bit of an idiot.
I think on the other hand, you have people living in Cyprus who would never expect to have to defend a missile coming from Iran, and Dubai has been considered a safe place for a very, very long time. There's always the threat wherever you are of some sort of attack like this. And the way they react is, okay, well, I've got children in school. I do feel under threat, at least for the time being. So we're going to leave for 1 or 2 months. And, perhaps the father or husband might stay there and continue working and just relocate the children temporarily. I don't think that you can plan for every eventuality, whether it's America or the UAE.
No, but you've got to be realistic, though, haven't you, rather? You've got to know that, for example, I remember going to Cyprus on holiday and thinking, crikey, I didn't know it was this near Syria. I suddenly just looked at the map as we were flying in and I thought, bloody hell, Syria's just over there. And you think, blimey, we're not in...
You can pretty much see it, can't you?
We're not in Brixton anymore, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think it crosses most people's mind. I mean, they know they're in the Middle East and they know there can always be conflict in the Middle East and that they'll just leave if there is.
Indeed. Rada, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Rada Sterling there talking to us about the possibilities of Dubai. But certainly, listen, the people that I've been talking to who live there, and I include my own daughter, but also other people as well, friends of hers, friends of mine, people who live in Abu Dhabi, people who live in adjoining countries to the Middle East, they're all pretty much aware of the fact that they would hope that it all passes soon. They would hope that they don't enter into kind of obviously a siege mentality. Many of them have said to me, yeah, well, we're starting to sort of buy a bit more water and a bit more toilet paper and a bit more pasta, and they're doing that thing that people do when they think that there might be some kind of run on the banks, so they take a bit of cash out, But I think it would be insulting to most people who live in Dubai and other parts of the Middle East to say to them, did you not think this might happen? And it would be kind of insulting for them to not be prepared for some of the stuff that's going on. And to be honest, most people, regardless of whatever hysteria you might read in the British press, are saying, actually, you know what? There hasn't really been many problems over the past couple of days, certainly since Tuesday, when, as Rada said there was an explosion at the US consulate. But it was actually just a bit of shrapnel that apparently fell down from the sky. And there's pictures on the front pages this morning in Syria of massive missiles like into the ground. You see one there on the front of the metro. That's some kid in Syria. But you live in Syria. You're likely to be killed by somebody from ISIS any minute now. So I just think that the world will continue to turn. The people who live in Dubai will continue to live there, and they'll be quite happy to continue to live there, and they won't expect it to be any different. So, we will talk about it, I'm sure, over the course of the next couple of hours. Dan Hodges has tweeted this in the last half an hour. Just over a year ago, Keir Starmer told the Labour Friends of Israel annual dinner, and this is his quote, "I will not turn a blind eye while Iran seeks to destabilise the Middle East. When Iran attacked Israel with ballistic missiles in April, the Labour Party stood with Israel as our RAF shot down Iranian drones. When they did the same in October, our RAF stood ready to play their full part once more, and we will continue to do so." And then Dan Hodges says, he finishes it up with, "That was a lie." Well, what a surprise. Keir Starmer, the liar. Meow Mook says, Starmer said Muslims are the new face of Britain. Yeah. And John on the super chat says, Ed Miliband didn't want us to go to war with Iran as it would have increased our carbon footprint, although ships and missiles pumping out dirty air. Yeah. And Meow Moog again, the dancing shows just how much they really care. That's the MPs dancing, pretending that Rome is burning and they're just watching it burn to the ground. It is ridiculous, isn't it? Coming up, Jamie Jenkins is going to join us. He's going to talk to us about the state of the economy. We're going to talk to him as well about the numbers coming in on the migrant boats, because I think we found out yesterday that as many as 2,200 have come to this country already since the beginning of January, and that was measured by, I think, Monday of this week. So no doubt there's probably another 1,000 or so have come since then. Also, Christian Drogan's going to be with us. He was up at one of the vigils for the Ayatollah in Manchester last night. And Siobhan White, who is, of course, the mother of Rhiannon White, who was murdered by a migrant, is going to be with us too. Plus Jennifer Ewing from Republicans Overseas. She'll give us her view of how Donald Trump is doing, because he is doing bloody well, by the way. Absolutely brilliant. And here's one from Lee Nalallingham. He was the guy we had on the show last week, who keeps an eye on the amount of money being spent by our bloated public sector. Here's a stat that you'll like. Fun fact, he says, the UK will collect £329 billion in income tax this year, right? Just imagine that. Quite a lot of that's mine, by the way. £329 billion in income tax. It will also spend £333 billion on welfare. Now, you don't have to be a mathematician to work out that that means that we've got £4 billion that we don't have going out to pay for the people who are not paying the tax that we're getting in. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a recipe for disaster. Absolute nightmare. Now, according to the international clock, it's 8 o'clock. It's time for the news. Let's get Edward Hughes.
Don't you forget now to like and subscribe and all the socials out there, especially our YouTube channel.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes. The escalating Middle East conflict dominates UK headlines today, with Prime Minister Keir Starmer insisting The protection of over 130,000 British nationals in the region remains the government's top priority amid ongoing US and Israeli strikes on Iran and Iranian retaliatory actions. The UK has allowed limited US use of British bases, but is not directly joining offensive operations. Defence Secretary John Healey confirmed the UK's terror threat level is under active review following the strikes, while Foreign Secretary concerns grow over risks to UK troops and civilians. President Trump has publicly criticised Starmer's approach, calling him no Winston Churchill and straining transatlantic ties. Elsewhere, Chancellor Richard III highlighted inflation forecasts averaging 2.3% for 2026, though growth projections were downgraded. In sports, and Arsenal extended their Premier League lead with a win over Brighton. More details throughout the day. Laters Tigers.
Okay. Edward Hughes with the news there. I'm just, forgive me, I'm just still opening. As we go, what's in Mike's sack? Should we play a bit of that? Have we got that, Pooch? Or is that hard to find?
You've got mail.
Because we've got so much stuff, right, that I'm trying to get through it. And please do forgive me if it seems unusual for me to be doing it at this particular time. But I've got this from Alison Moore, who sent me a very nice little card. It says, "Hi Mike, congratulations on your amazing show. Myself and my husband watch every day. I was the pedant moaning about your flag, so I thought I would send you a bit of a better one. Lots of love to you, Pooch and Ziggy." Alison, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, so there was a problem, wasn't there, with people moaning about the flag. There's Ziggy. My hair looks ridiculous there, by the way. Anyway, no, if you look over my, no, not that one, that shoulder there, you can see the flag in the plant pot. And maybe Alison was the person who said, you know, it looks a bit limp. So she's now sent me, pardon? Sorry, Pooch being filthy. She sent me a much stiffer version, basically, which I'm about to try and erect. Let's see if we can do it, because this is great. So here we are. Look, we've got a base, which is there. Super chat from Barker. If we join the war, what about GE? More Starmer. What do you mean? What about general election? Yeah, well, I mean, listen, if we do... See, I keep hearing this from people. I don't think we are at war. Andy says this, Keir Stalin equals wanker, Ed Miliband equals wanker, Wes equals wanker. Oh my God, MPs dancing, what a bunch of wankers. When will the nightmare be over? And one more. Super chat from Front Side Bus. Your sign behind you is in the colours of Russia. What? The Mike Graham Show. What, the Mike Graham Show, red, white and blue? What, you mean like the Union Jack? That's also the colours of Russia. So here's another unit. So this is from Alison, right? Now, if we do this right, I think I put that, thread that in there. That's also, sorry, no, I'm not going there. Yeah, just, is it in yet? Yeah, there we are. If they say that, by the way, it's not a good sign. No. Because if they can't tell, you're in trouble. Right, so now, look, here we are. So, Alison, I hope that you will agree that this is a much better flag. See, look at that.
I'll put it in the middle of that shot, Mike. Look at the screen.
Where do you want to put it?
In the middle of the table. Forward.
Oh, you mean like there? No, no, there.
Keep going. Right in the middle of the table.
Oh, there, sorry.
Yeah, so in the middle of you.
Yeah, how about that? But you see, it doesn't stick up any more than the other one does, really, does it? Or does it? If I do that, is that better?
Well, let's ask Jamie what it is.
Yeah, we'll ask Jamie. I mean, it's great. Alison, listen, it's lovely. It's a great addition to the general course of the show. So we've got a Union Jack now on the main table, as we have one behind us. And I'm not buying the. And also, there's a mug there, the Mike Graham Show, also in the colours of Russia. You know, you get over yourselves. Right, let's talk to Jamie Jenkins, who is, of course, our man in Welsh Wales. And he's our man with his finger on the pulse of all things to do with national statistics, as he was once the chief of the Office for National Statistics. Jamie, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike. Yeah, I think that flag's flying at half-mast for Rachel Reeves' State of the Economy, Mike. I think that's what it is.
I'm very impressed with it. I mean, also the fact that I was able to put it together, because, you know, I'm literally not the guy to put anything together from IKEA. When I was married, we used to go to IKEA when my kids were little, and I would end up looking after the kids while their mother was the one putting the bunk beds together, because I was like, I just can't do it. But yeah, I mean, Rachel Reeves' statement on Tuesday was probably one of the worst financial statements I think I've ever heard. I mean, she seemed to be thinking that it was appropriate for her to be laughing and joking while people are genuinely suffering. And she just kept issuing these kind of what she would regard as truth bombs, which were blatantly untrue, right?
Yeah, I remember growing up, Mike, as well. And March used to be a very good political time because you'd get that budget, or Ken Clark would stand up talking about budgets and things.
Yeah.
But so the budget, so the statement that we had, it wasn't really a budget. It was just talking a bit about basically an update on the state of the economy. And the one thing I would give Rachel Reeves credit for, you don't come on the show very often and give her credit. She's very good at talking a good game and talking as if the economy is doing well. And some people watching her might think, things are looking really good, but that's what I'm on the show for, Mike, because when we go underneath the bonnet of what's actually happening, it's not looking good at all. So she keeps saying, and every week I hear her say this, she keeps saying, we're on the right economic plan. Now,
Yes.
I wrote my Substack this week, Mike, and people can pop over and read that. We'll talk about it later. But, we've had Britain downgraded in terms of the forecast. It's not just the OBR who do all of the figures. The Bank of England have downgraded. And what that means basically is that compared to what we thought, say, a few months back, the state of the economy is worse. That's what a downgrade of the economy means. Now, taxes are going up. You just talked about that. Welfare spending is going up. And who's paying for it is working people. And basically, because we've got no momentum going on in the economy, and you choke the economy, when you put taxes up, basically what that means is less money is going into your pocket, going into your bank account. And what Starmer's relying on, and Rachel Reeves, and basically give credit as well to Rishi Sunak here. He said, during the debates and ahead of the last election, they will increase taxes on working people. Starmer said they wouldn't, and we've got what is known as fiscal drag. And what that means, Mike, is they're not putting tax thresholds up. And so as your pay goes up every single year, some people do get pay rises, as your pay goes up, more and more people get caught into higher tax bands, and more of your money gets taken by the Chancellor. And that's what's going on. So And the OBR did warn about you get some perverse incentives with this, because over the next 5 years, more and more of your tax is going to be taken. So people try and avoid tax, and you get things called the Laffer curve, where basically the more you put up taxes, the less you actually get. And somebody actually wrote down a comment on my blog this week, Mike. Actually, I thought it was good, and said, we're not on the Laffer curve anymore, Mike. With Rachel Reeves, we're on the laughter curve, because it's absolute nonsense what she's doing.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, the fact is that they seem to be not only trying to convince us that they're doing the right thing, but it's almost like they're trying to convince each other that they're doing the right thing. I mean, do you think they're sitting there in Parliament or sitting there in Downing Street convincing themselves that they're actually on top of it? Because they're not, are they?
Well, no. So I think we heard a few weeks back, didn't we, that Wes Streeting says there's no real plan. And I've worked in the civil service, Mike, and I've worked up in Whitehall and seen how these departments work. And a lot of the civil servants drive a lot of the policy discussions. The general consensus of where things are going is driven by the Chancellor overall, because they've got their kind of plans that they want to do. And I don't think they know what they're doing, because it's not Mike, it doesn't take somebody with an economics degree to realize that when you put taxes up on jobs will be cut, and that's exactly what we've had. And another remarkable thing that they've admitted now, the OBR, and we've seen that, and we've talked about this recently, Mike, is that so GDP per head, so that's when you look at the size of the economy per person, that's actually improving because they've downgraded the net migration figure. But the reason they've downgraded it, Mike, is not because they think suddenly a lot fewer people are going to be coming in. They've actually projected now that more and more people are leaving, because basically more Brits are leaving, wealthy Brits are leaving. If it's the right plan for the UK, it's obviously for them it's the wrong plan, because they're going. And what does it mean, Mike? When people leave the economy, who are basically going to be hardworking Brits, that means people like you and I have to pay more tax to make up for all those who aren't working. And pensioners as well, Mike. Let's talk quickly about them. So pensioners, the state pension, because they're freezing these tax thresholds. So the pensioners watching the show over the next 5 years, many of those are going to get caught up by paying income tax for the first time on the state pension, because they're not literally, the state pension's going up, but the tax rate's not. So they're basically taking with one hand and giving with the other.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? And I was reading a piece, I think, yesterday, which said that now the kind of starting rate of tax effectively for people is more like 38%, because it's no longer in the 20s, because they're sort of being pushed towards these different thresholds. And also they're kind of finding that everything else is going up in price. So, for example, I mean, talk about heating oil, for example. I was hearing from somebody this morning who said that, she saw that heating oil had absolutely ballooned in price. And, because it's coming to sort of the beginning of March, you're kind of not buying as much if you're living in the country as you would otherwise to heat the house. However, you now thinking, should I buy it now? Should I wait for it to go down a little bit? And then she went to go and buy some, and there's no supply because people are going, no, everybody's, put a run on heating oil.
Yeah, obviously the war over in the Middle East is probably helping with that one, with that run. But you're right, Mike. So if you think about, you go to work and people basically get out of bed, alarm call Britain, I think Nigel Farage talked about it. People get out of bed, go to work to earn some money to live on. And so you've got your income tax. So that's the starter for 10. You basically pay income tax. Then you've got national insurance on top. It was always sold, decades ago that national insurance would ring fence the social security for the NHS. It doesn't quite work like that. Like all the money goes in the same pot. You've got that on top of that. Then, so the money that does go into your bank account, you then go and buy something with it. Well, you got VAT basically. So there's another 20% tax that you're paying that you've actually got money back. And it might be that you're going to book a flight. You got kind of the air duties that you got on top of that. Buy a bit of alcohol. You got alcohol duty. So literally, you cannot avoid tax, and we're being choked by tax. And I think the Institute for Fiscal Studies are warning as well that the amount of tax that we're taking is at historical high levels. I'm a big believer, Mike, that lower tax, put more money in people's pockets, and that will get the economy going. Because Rachel Reeves is repeatedly, I say this, Mike, she clearly has not attended the lesson in school where they talked about the multiplier effect, which is basically you put some money in your pocket, Mike, you'll go and have a meal. Basically, the restaurant will have some money. They'll employ some more staff. Those staff will go and basically do a few things as well. They'll go out and about spending the economy. And suddenly you start seeing basically all the people in the economy. It's more buoyant, confidence is up. But you put more money in Rachel Reeves' pocket to start dishing out on small boat migrants coming over in hotels and the welfare system. That is not going to get Britain moving, is it?
Well, it's not. And again, I mean, how about that for a message, by the way? Karen, can we just get that one back? My water bill is 2,244 quid for a Band C house. Southwest Water are extortionists and should be challenged. That's extraordinary, isn't it? 2,200 quid. I mean, that's literally 200 quid a month for something that falls out of the sky for free. And you kind of go, what the hell is going on? And again, we had Rachel Reeves this week when she was speaking in Parliament, talking about, the power of immigration and how, the reason we don't have any growth in this country is because, there's not as many people coming here from other countries. Absolutely not. It's rubbish, There's more people coming here than ever. I think we've had the latest number was 2,200, which came out, I think, on Tuesday. People coming here illegally on small boats since the beginning of January. She's claiming that because the net migration figures are going down, it means there's fewer people coming into the country. No, the reason they're going down is because there's a load more people leaving the bloody country because they can't stand living here. And so, but this kind of myth that the Labour Party put out there that says, in order for us to get economic growth, we need to employ a load of foreigners, is complete cobblers, isn't it?
Yeah, totally, Mike. So net migration has been coming down the last couple of years because under the Boris wave of migration, it was completely being abused by students. We've seen excessive number of family dependents coming over for students. Must have been a lot of bogus degrees going on. But we are seeing more younger people leaving the country, which we just alluded to there. And on the small boat migrants, they don't even come over. They're not fleeing all of these war-torn countries. They're coming over. It was so the latest number is 2,413 because we had another 204 come over on Tuesday, Mike. It's slightly lower. On Monday we were ahead of last year. By today we're slightly behind last year because we had some big numbers in the same week this time last year. But as we go into spring, Mike, the only thing that stops the boats is basically the weather. this calm weather that we're seeing, it's a very nice day down here in South Wales. I'm sure it is across the rest of the country. I'll expect now March to see a lot more people coming over, and who has to pay for them? Us. And this fallacy, Mike, that we need more migrants, basically, I think we know the things that you look at, youth unemployment's going up. The number of people basically who are young, who are not in education or doing any form of training as well on top of that, that's been rising. The big reason that over decades we've relied on migrants is because we've got an education system not joined up to the employment system. So we got, 1 million people not working who are young. They could be doing a lot of these jobs, but employers look at them and think, you've got a degree, that's not even relevant to what I want. So we need to fix that side of things, Mike. And that message you just wrote about with the water bills, it's absolutely bonkers. So, energy, the self-sufficiency on gas, Mike. So if you go back to the early 2000s, we produced all of the gas that we used domestically. We're exposed more to these foreign wars because we don't. Water, you're right, it comes from the sky. So things like water, things like gas, things like electricity, things that, energy to heat our homes, they're the necessity things that we need to live. The government needs to prioritize those. And when the wind is not blowing and when it's a calm day, I keep seeing Dale Vince and others on social media talking about we need more wind, more wind. When the wind isn't blowing, Mike, we have an energy crisis. So the government needs to wake up, sort this mess out, because 2,000 odd pounds for water is absolute nonsense, Mike. And the government needs to get a grip on things.
Yeah, absolutely right. They totally do. But this is the other problem that we've got with the whole kind of, perception, if you like, of the way the government is operating. I mean, you've got local elections coming up in Wales. We've obviously got them in local authorities here in the UK, in England. And thankfully, many of the elections that we thought were going to be cancelled are actually going to be going ahead, which is good. But tell us what the lay of the land is in Wales, because Labour have been running Wales probably for the best part of your life and certainly best part of my life. But they're going to get stopped, aren't they?
Yeah, so all my kind of adult life, Mike, I've been under the kind of the rule of Labour in Wales, and until 27 years pretty much. And what have we got for that? Well, they call it the National Health Service when they talk about the UK, but it's devolved obviously in Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and England. We've got a worse health service in Wales compared to England. Education outcomes for our children are worse. We're in the slow lane. We've got these 20 mile an hour. I know there's some in England as well, but we've got this 20 mile an hour across most of the country.
Yeah.
And Labour this week, Mike, very interestingly, they kind of launched the start of their campaign for our Welsh Parliament coming up in May. And they've called her a new chapter for Wales, Mike, literally a new chapter. So basically they've been writing the book for 27 years and now they're talking about a new chapter. Thankfully, the way the poll's going, the latest lot are in power there, mate. It's the final chapter. And so Nigel Farage is down in Wales today, Mike. So that'll be an interesting this morning. He's down to launch Reforms Manifesto. So the way the land is lying in Wales, we've got the Nationalists, Plaid Cymru, who are picking up some of that vote that's left Labour. Some of that vote that's left Labour has also gone to Reform as well. So it's neck and neck in the polls. And I think some of the stuff Nigel Farage is going to be talking about with the new leader, Dan Thomas in Wales today, from what I've seen in the press this morning, is that, if you ever try to drive into Wales, Mike, on the south, we've got basically the slow lane of the M4. It's just basically a car park of the M4. The Labour government, the Tories, they've all talked about M4 relief roads. I think Reform are planning to promise that. And they're going to reverse this 20 mile an hour speed limit as well, Mike, that we've got all over the country. Do you know anybody, Mike, and you've got some of these in London as well, do you know anybody who thinks it's common sense at 2 o'clock in the morning to literally be driving 20 miles an hour around parts?
Well, it's worse than that.
It's worse than that. Anybody who thinks it's a good idea?
Yeah, no, it's worse than that, because I drive in and out of the office here, which just reminds me I've got to pay for my parking. And because of the 20 mile an hour zone, you've got these bozos, and many of them, I think, have come from elsewhere, not in this country. And they're driving at 15 because they're so terrified of getting a ticket. And so you literally walk faster. And I'm in a Maserati, right? And I'm not trying to brag about that, but, it's not really designed to go at 15 miles an hour. It's designed to go at 150 miles an hour. And I'm not suggesting that I should drive at that speed in London, but, it is absolutely nothing ludicrous that people are now in cars. I mean, I went to America, like when my mother was dying, and I went over to see my sister and see my mother before she passed away. And I was driving back to my sister's house, and she said to me, why are you driving so slowly? I said, what do you mean? She's like, you're driving like some kind of old git. And she's going, you can do 60 here. And I was like, oh, right, okay. And, off I went, started to put my foot down. But yeah, I mean, again, it's a kind of indicative illustration of how badly run places like Wales are, places like London are, where they think that it's a good idea to make you move as slowly as possible to get around, instead of actually being able to move quickly to get lots more done.
Yeah, what's the common thing with Labour running London with Sadiq Khan? You got Labour running Wales, and you're right. And the thing is, and this will be the criticism that will be labelled to people when you say you want to kind of scrap the 20-mile-an-hour speed. They'll say to you, oh, you want to kill more and more young children. So, looking at the data, Mike, that if you look at and every death is tragic, but if you look at the latest data, the number of deaths we saw in the latest quarter in Wales on 20 to 30-mile-an-hour roads was exactly the same as what we saw 10 years ago before all the madness of all of these changes. Yeah. So, life is about risk, and you've got to take a risk and a cost benefit analysis of everything. And you've got to get the economy moving, and I've been literally, so I want to try and keep a bit fit, Mike, the weather's starting to turn. I know you're not a massive fan of some of the cyclists in London, but I try and get out my bike now and again, and I've literally been able to overtake cars on the roads because 15 miles an hour I'm on my bicycle. I
know. Well, we've actually got signs in London that say, do not overtake cyclists. It's one of my, I hate cyclists, but it's, I make one or two exceptions, and I understand that if you live in the country, it's fine. But, in London, we've got these cycle lanes, and the thing that really drives me mad is when you get one of these bloody cyclists not in the cycle lane. And you go, get in the cycle lane. What are you doing? Why are you coming up on the inside? Why are you coming around the outside? Why are you on the bit of the road that I'm trying to walk on as a pedestrian? And I'm not even looking out for cyclists, because I'm assuming you'll be in the cycle lane. But no, they want to have rights to go anywhere they want without any penalty whatsoever.
I tell you one thing, I worked in London previously up in Whitehall, and I just can't get over the amount of cyclists that are on the roads in London as well. And if you're trying to drive in London, gosh, literally, I would not want to be driving in London with the amount of cyclists that you see. And
no,
you've got to try to avoid them. They're literally everywhere, Mike. So just want to say one thing, Mike, before we finish as well. So what I get to see when I'm on the thing, I get a little ticker in the top corner of the number of people who are watching you. And every week, Mike, which is good for the show, I do see, we're not getting any economic growth in the country, but I look at the viewing figures, Mike, fair play to you. They're growing up every single week. So I think there may be a windfall tax, Mike.
Well, listen, I can't believe it. And Pooch and I have this conversation every morning. I mean, because we turned over into 9 million views at the beginning of the week, and it's now up to 9.7. So we're reckoning we'll get 10 million before the end of the week. And we're doing about 1 million a week, which is extraordinary. I'm looking at some of my former colleagues, shall we say, who have got YouTube channels, who've been going for 3 or 4 years, who've got less than that.
No, it's excellent, Mike. I've been with you from day one, I think, when you was launching, and back in December when you was doing your kind of pre-launch shows. And it's good to see, Mike, that people have come across supporting you, and just a big plug for your Substack as well, because I think people can get over there. And I get your emails as well, Mike, where it's not just watching you, Mike. People can get your kind of emails in terms of your blogs that you write as well. So all your kind of ramblings that people want to be interested in, so get over to yours, and people can get over to mine as well, statsjamie.co.uk. Just check my name.
It's the new way forward. I mean, newspapers, old-fashioned radio, television, it's all gone. It's all dead. Put it in the bin and kick it into the river, because this is the way forward. Substacks, you bringing directly to the public your views and your information and your expertise, right? And the same for us. We are preaching to the converted to some extent, but also we're finding new and better ways of communicating with our audience, and our audience is growing literally by the day. I mean, we've got more stuff to open. We've got incredible numbers of parcels that we've got here we haven't even got to yet. But let me ask you about this, because there's a message that came in just now from Phil. If mass migration is working, why is GDP flatlining for 2 decades and there is no growth in the economy? Because mass migration eventually reduces wages and output, which it does, right?
Yeah, so when I worked in the ONS, I was doing the labour market statistics. I know throughout the COVID period I was talking about the health stats because I covered that. But I was doing the labour market statistics. And one of the stories, this is back about probably 15 years ago now, Mike, I think. One of the stories I was writing about was the number of non-UK born workers, so that was how we defined migrants, that were coming over doing jobs, and the level of the job that they were doing in relation to kind of their education. And they were literally coming over doing jobs that I don't like to use the word beneath them in terms, because obviously they want to do a job, but the qualifications that they had where they were coming over from, say, Poland and the like, they were doing jobs that were a lot lower in terms of skills because of the wage differences. And what happens there is that when you get an influx of migrants who are willing to do roles that they're perhaps overeducated for, the employer will think, great, I'll take you. You've got more skills than, say, somebody in the UK. But what that does is it increases the supply of labour. Simple economics, Mike. If you increase the supply of something, the employer can think, oh, I can pay you all a little bit less now because there's more of you. So it does have a downward pressure on wages. That's the consequence of it. But the other consequence as well, Mike, if people come over, well, where are they going to live? Well, they come over, they need to find houses to live in. So that, and then because we have another house building that's gone on, that then pushes up house price. So you get this vicious circle. More migration, basically, Mike, has a detrimental effect, in my view, on the living standards of people in the UK. That's why GDP has been relatively flat as well. And if you take the last 2 quarters, Mike, very important to put that migration angle in that the viewer there has written about, is that the definition of a recession by the ONS is 2 quarters of negative growth. But and the numbers are slightly up in the last 2 quarters. But if you do it on a per person basis, so that's where you adjust for the population growth that we're seeing, they're actually down in the last 2 quarters. So living standards, Mike, everybody in the UK today is worse off than what they were 6 months ago, Mike, and that's a fact. Rachel Reeves, she won't stand at the dispatch box and tell you these kind of things. She'll keep saying her plan is working, but her plan is clearly not working for hard-working Brits in the UK, mate.
No, definitely not. Jamie, brilliant to talk to you as ever. Jamie Jenkins, go and find his Substack and read all about it because you get a lot of really, really good interpretation, if you like, of the statistics, because it's all very well listening to these bozos in government, but actually looking behind the numbers and the figures is quite illustrative of what's going wrong in this country. Jamie, thanks very much indeed. We'll talk to you again same time next week. Jamie Jenkins there, our man with his finger on the pulse at the Office for National Statistics, where he used to work. Now, I've told you before about the bumper sticker scenario. I'm going to tell you again. You can get yourself a free bumper sticker and you can stick it anywhere you like. You don't have to put it on the back of your car. You can put it, if you want, on your fridge. You can put it on your front door or your back door. Yeah, steady. Or you can do any number of things with it. Put it on the back of a bike, put it on a backpack, whatever. Let me just give you the address. Here's what you've got to do, because we came up with this. It took a great deal of... is that what is that noise?
Some squeaky noise.
Squeaky noise. Yeah, squeaky noise going on. Yeah, can we just have the address there, Pooch? Sorry. So what you've got to do is send us a stamped addressed envelope, and it has to be a particular size envelope in order for us not to have to fold the Mike Graham Show bumper sticker, right? Here's one from John, who has sent us a super chat that says, Lloyd's has withdrawn insurance for shipping in that region, but the USA has offered insurance as an alternative to London. No more monopoly for the UK. Yeah, it's an interesting story, this actually. It means that Lloyd's of London, which has been the sort of main insurer of ships and of major kind of, organisations for years and years and years and years, might now be actually under threat because Donald Trump has gone, well, if you guys are not going to insure these boats, we are not going to help you out in the future, and therefore we will come up with our own insurance. Because one of the things that's happened in the last sort of week or so, since all the trouble started in the Middle East, is that people running tankers through the Straits of Hormuz and through the Red Sea have been told they'll have to take out more insurance and they'll have to pay more as a premium. You know what insurance companies are like. And the premium has gone up to something like 250,000 quid per vessel per trip. And a lot of the oil companies are going, well, we're just not going to pay that. We haven't got the money. We're not going to do it. So we'll come back to that. So, sorry, Pooch, can we just have the address? Yeah, the Mike Graham Show, P.O. Box 257, Battle, East Sussex, TN33 3FS, F for Freddy, S for Sugar. That's the Mike Graham Show, P.O. Box 257, Battle, East Sussex, TN33 3FS. Now, the other thing we want to tell you about, of course, is the fact that we've got Mike Graham and Friends, which is effectively a Mike Graham Show live, which is going to go out on May the 6th, right here in London at the Shepherd's Bush Empire, which is a marvellous theatre, which hosted only recently the Foo Fighters, who played there. We're going to be treading the same boards as Dave Grohl and the guys from Nirvana. So May the 6th, loads of great guests, including Lewis McLeod, including Stephen Barrett, including a whole host of other people that we're going to tell you about over the course of the next couple of weeks. Right Said Fred are going to be there as well.
They can click on that link, Mike.
They can. Oh, you can click on this link. That's great. Here's the link from Ticketmaster where you can get tickets. We've sold loads and loads of them already. Hundreds and hundreds of tickets have been sold, but we'd like to completely fill the place out. So come and join us, have a party, and you probably get a free bumper sticker actually if you show up. I know that may not be a great enticement for you, but you know, it's better than nothing. And we may get other freebies for you too. But it's going to be a fantastic night. It's going to be a similarity to this show. People have said to me, what's it going to be like? Well, it's going to be like watching Mike Graham in the morning, except it's going to be at night. So it'll be even more risque. It'll be even more kind of, cataclysmic, I would imagine. And we will have even more fun than we have. Because if you think this is unregulated, wait till you see us live on the stage. We're going to also have the guys from Mr. Fizz. Chris Walkey's going to be there with his son Oliver. They're going to be the official drink supplier to the event. So that's going to be great. And so we're really looking forward to it. So it's May the 6th. It's run by a company called academymusicgroup.com. Click on the link that we put up there just before, Ticketmaster, and you can get yourselves tickets to come along and enjoy the time that we have together. Because after all, if you're not having a laugh, what is the bloody point? Now, I've been opening things over the course of the last couple of days. I'm going to continue to do so. This from Philip Lowry. He says, great show, Mike. You have some fantastic guests. Keep up the good work. Well done to Pooch and Charlotte for all the work they do behind the scenes. So don't say you're not given any credit. And another lovely heron tie, right? I'm getting quite a few of these. I might have to give one of these to Pooch because I've got two the same now. Look at this. There's one there and one there. Yeah, you can have one of these. They're both the same. It's nice. It's lovely. I mean, don't get me wrong. I really appreciate all of the wonderful gifts that you're sending in. Really appreciate it. We've got any more super chats, Pooch, that we need to do before we move on? No? I'll tell you what then, in that case, let's get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. The escalating Middle East conflict dominates UK headlines today, with Prime Minister Keir Starmer insisting the protection of over 130,000 British nationals in the region remains the government's top priority amid ongoing US and Israeli strikes on Iran and Iranian retaliatory actions. The UK has allowed limited US use of British bases, but is not directly joining offensive operations. Defence Secretary John Healey confirmed the UK's terror threat level is under active review following the strikes, while Foreign Secretary concerns grow over risks to UK troops and civilians. President Trump has publicly criticised Starmer's approach, calling him no Winston Churchill and straining transatlantic ties. Elsewhere, Chancellor Richard III highlighted inflation forecasts averaging 2.3% for 2026, though growth projections were downgraded. In sports, and Arsenal extended their Premier League lead with a win over Brighton. More details throughout the day. Later's Tigers.
Edward Hughes there with the news. I've actually got this from Rosa. Is it Rosa? Please can I have a bumper sticker and enclose a stamped attached envelope. Yeah, you can. Look at this. So look, there it is, going into the envelope right there. I shouldn't probably show that, should I? There you go. Brilliant. And I'll post that this afternoon. With my own fair hand. There you go. So when you get it, you'll know that all is well. That's brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. So, listen, lots and lots of you have been in touch, and many of you have got very important things to say. But I have to say, our next guest, and we'll never have anything more important to say than anybody else, because she is the mother of Rhiannon White, Siobhan White, who is a woman who you might have seen on other shows. You've seen her on GB News. You've probably seen her on Talk. Her daughter was murdered by a migrant who came to this country. And who was offered, sanctuary, who was offered all of the things that we enjoy as part of our civilized society. And this character, this scumbag, decided that what he would do would be to attack a woman who was actually helping him. You're all, I'm sure, aware of the story, but let's say a very good morning to Siobhan, because Siobhan, we really love to see you. We sympathise in a way that I don't think any of us can even know. But welcome to the show. Thank you.
Well, good morning.
You've got some important news to impart to us, though, haven't you? Because what you're telling us, and I find this incredible, is that despite what happened to your amazing daughter, she was stabbed multiple times, attacked in a horrible way. The man who did it has now been sent to jail. You've had no contact whatsoever with the Prime Minister of this country, and even with any other so-called Labour Party kind of cabinet members who talk about safety for women and girls all the time. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely no one. Jess Phillips, just after, not long after Rihanna passed away, Jess Phillips contacted my girls, spoke to them for a maximum 30 minutes, promised them everything in Rihanna's name, against femicide, not a thing after. Our local MP, Matt Weston, not a thing until recently, as I've named him, and I've now written to Keir Starmer.
Right. And I've got a copy of what you've written, but if you'd like to, would you be able to read it out to us?
I haven't actually got it in front of me, but...
Okay. Well, tell us roughly what you're asking him to do.
I asked him to meet me to discuss this and why it's still happening, basically.
Yeah.
I need answers. I need answers as to why this was allowed to happen, why Rihanna was taken from us in such circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah. And how he can justify his continued kind of adherence to this plan, this kind of idea that, all immigration is good, and all, people who come here from other countries have got things that they want to do which are worthwhile. I've got your letter here in front of me. I'm going to read it out. I'm the mother of Rhiannon White, who was brutally murdered in October 2024. I again am emailing to request a meeting to discuss this matter. My daughter's death was avoidable. The grief and trauma this has left us with is something you will probably never understand. And this sadly isn't a one-off. Katie, Lily, Stephanie, amongst others, our women of England are being murdered, raped or attacked on a daily basis. I need answers. Not one single member of the government has reached out. Broken promises from Jess Phillips. Our local MP, Matt Weston, reaching out now that I have named and shamed him. This isn't a matter to be brushed under the carpet, and the matters of Epstein or Mandelson to be used as a cover-up is disgraceful. That issue is in America. This is our country, England. It needs to be dealt with ASAP. I think we all would totally support what you've said there. I think it's really difficult for us to feel how you must feel, but it's just incredible, isn't it? That
it just grieves me though, Mike. Is the fact that he can go out and apologise to Epstein's victims, and yes, my heart is with those girls, but they're in America. They're not here. What about our women and our children? It's like he just doesn't want to know. He just doesn't care enough.
Right. Can you, I know this is going to be difficult and I don't want to put you on the spot here, but can you tell us how you found out what had happened to Rhiannon?
Rhiannon had been on the phone to her best friend, Emma.
Yeah.
She was walking to the station, which is literally 60 seconds from the hotel.
Right.
Her friend Emma heard a scream. And then the phone went off. Emma phoned myself, but obviously I didn't answer the call at first. I was doing something. And then she spoke to Rhiannon's younger sister, Cara. She said, I think something's happened to Rhiannon, being attacked, because you don't like to think the worst, obviously. So then we're on the phone to the police, Rhiannon's other siblings. I phoned the hotel. Is Rhiannon there? No, she's left. Well, you need to get somebody over there because something's happened. And then it was literally phoning hospitals, phoning police, around family, etc. And you never think it's going to be as bad as what it is. You think she's just been beaten up, etc. Then I was on a group call with my children, and I got a call off the police, and they said they've got Rhiannon. Because I phoned the Manor when I lived in Walsall at the time. Manor was the closest hospital. I phoned the Manor, expecting her to be there. Then the police phoned. They said, we've got Rhiannon, we're taking her to Queen Elizabeth. It's either life-threatening or life-changing. And that was it. We were literally at the hospital within half an hour, I think.
Yeah. And that was just out of the blue, right? You just were living your normal life, just doing what you normally do.
Home. She had a week off.
Yeah.
She spent it with family. And he decided that, I don't know. I mean, unless you actually watch the full video footage from the hotel, there's clips obviously in the court on the media, etc. But when myself and Rhiannon's two sisters watched the full footage, it was like 2.5 hours. It must have been that he just watched her. She went outside for a vape. He hung around the reception area, came out, walked into Rhiannon, bearing in mind there was 2 other women in front of her. Apparently it was all reported to Serco. We don't know. It wasn't. We don't know if it was written down, because if it's not written down, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But not one member of Serco got up and done anything about it. They just sat there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just awful. And when he went to trial, you obviously were in the court. Were you at some points?
We were there the whole time, yeah.
And did you have any inkling from him that he was sorry or that he was mad or anything at all? I mean, this is the problem. You see, I feel so sad for you and your family, but also angry that these people are coming into the country who are, you know, dangerous and, you know, obviously dangerous. And it's like, what the hell is going on?
There was nothing. When he got arrested, thankfully, British Transport made the arrest within 5 hours. He went back to the police station and fell asleep. And then during the trial, his barrister, I didn't hear it. I'd actually walked out of the courtroom at the time because of something else that had been said. And my sister came out and she was fuming, and she said that the barrister turned around and he said, well, can you imagine how scared and frightened he is? Well, how does he think Rhiannon was feeling?
Yeah. Also, I don't care how scared and frightened he is, to be honest.
I don't care how scared and frightened. I hope he's scared and frightened for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
But to bring that up, I mean, his barrister mentioned race. Not once through any of this have we mentioned race. It was one person who took my daughter.
Yeah.
But again, now we come back to the government. It's, why are they allowing these people in when they're undocumented, unvetted?
Yeah.
We don't know what diseases they've got. We don't even know if that's their real age, because their generic age is the first of the first, which this scumbag tried to do with Rhiannon. Right. He lied about his age. He called the forensics a liar. He just had no remorse or care in the world. Just shrugged everything off.
Yeah. And does it not make you think, because it makes me think this, that there are people who come from countries in the world who are not human in the way that we are human. They don't have any kind of remorse. They don't have any sense of right and wrong. They seem to think that they can do whatever they want.
No, the thing is, though, I mean, it came out that he had fled South Sudan to go to North Sudan because he was in fear of his life. He left his pregnant wife and his family in North Sudan. And then obviously he went to Libya, Germany, Italy and France before he came to England. But his barrister was more concerned about him fleeing for his life, because apparently a soldier wanted to marry his sister. You just don't know what to believe. It's consistent lies all the way through.
Right. And what sort of support did you get from the judicial system in terms of advice or lawyers kind of talking to you? What did you get?
British Transport Police have been absolutely fantastic. From the minute they had that arrest until recently, even now, we still stay in touch. Paul Atwell, the detective superintendent, who took the case that night. I'm just thankful he did. Our liaison officers, Tim and Carl, have been brilliant. They've been very honest and open with me, because I said to them, if I feel like you're lying, I won't have any faith. Because obviously I had no faith in their systems, etc. at the time. You know, I was heartbroken.
Yeah, of course.
British Transport Police have been brilliant. Our barrister, Michelle Healy, I could not have wished. In fact, I refused to do the trial if we didn't have Michelle. As that side of it, I honestly can't. You know, I'm grateful to them. I will be for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And let's talk a bit about Rhiannon, because sometimes, you know, when we talk about these terrible events, we don't think about the person who's no longer here. Rhiannon was your daughter. Tell us a bit about her. What was kind of demeanour? What did she like to do? What was her favourite movie? What was her favourite, song?
Yeah, she genuinely was the softest, laid back person you could ever meet.
Yeah.
She didn't like, it's not that she didn't see, but she didn't like to see the dangers in life, hence probably working at that hotel. But, she just liked to get on with everybody. And I used to keep saying to her, even from a child, like, stand up for yourself, because she was quite soft. Her family were her first and foremost. Her little boy, again, she doted on him, her nieces and nephews. She became my best friend. Obviously, she was my friend anyway. She was my daughter, but she lived with me and we did everything together the last kind of 2-3 years. But if Rhiannon saw someone struggling on the street, she would give them her last pound. That's how soft and gentle she was. She didn't like to see bad in anyone. And, I was worried when she started the hotel. Obviously, I'm a mum.
Yeah.
But I think there was a group of like 5 migrants used to talk to her, and her heart used to go out to them because they were like gay and they've had to fled their country, or that they've come over to try and genuine help and bring their families over, etc. But as a whole, she was just a little darling, honestly.
Yeah. And you've got her little boy to remember her by. Does he look like her?
He's her double. He's got the blonde hair, blue eyes. Personality, yes. But Rhiannon had a bit of a dark sense of humour, where we've got a bit of a... She was very quirky and dark. He's very out there. He's got a great little sense of humour, but to look at him, he's like looking at her as a child. Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Wow, amazing. And if you can get this, I'm going to call him a scumbag, Keir Starmer, because he is, in front of you, if you could get him in front of you, what would you say to him?
One thing I will say is he really won't like me when I finish, but I don't care. I want to ask him why he's so quick to fly off to China, fly off to America, do all this for everybody else, but not his own women. Why has he, as this big prime minister of our country, etc., why has he not reached out? Why has he not took a firm stance on this and said, look, enough is enough?
Yeah.
That he's just, I'll let you in. I'll let you into our country, and basically you just go and murder our women and children. It doesn't matter. And our men. I despise him. I absolutely despise the man. And I know it was the government before him as well. But if he cared about our people, why has he not stopped this?
Yeah.
Why is he not? This is what I want to know. Why have you not stopped this? Why is my daughter not here anymore? Because you allowed this scumbag into our country. I've got to live with that for the rest of my life. Her little boy's got to grow up without his mum. Her sibling, Rhiannon's siblings have lost their sister.
Yeah.
And 2 days after the verdict in October last year, we lost our mum. She was heartbroken. And, we had Rhiannon's verdict on the Friday. He was found guilty. This was meant to have been dealt with in December. But because, again, the bone density, refusals, etc., it wasn't. So losing my mum, Rhiannon's nan, it's just spiralled us again. But basically, I want to say to Starmer, he's got the death of 2 people on his hands from my family.
Yeah.
He's got to stand up and take note, because enough is enough.
Yeah. Well, listen, we will do what we can to help and try and get him to come and see you, because you deserve at least that respect and the notice that he should be giving, not only to you but to everybody in this country. And, you know, he walks around, he goes to an iftar, you know, and talks about how, you know, the Muslim community is so great for Britain.
And it's the rubbish he puts online, isn't it? You know, I know. The news, and he's like, "Oh, I'm out to protect these women and children, etc." There's a death, there's a rape, there's something every single day under his government.
Yeah.
But he'd rather fly off to, you know, again, I feel sorry for these girls that are involved in the Epstein case, but I may be a bit selfish. I don't care at the moment. I want our country dealt with. I want a reason as to why this happened to my daughter.
Yeah. Yeah. And how he let it happen, because he did. There's no doubt about it. Siobhan, listen, great to talk to you. Thank you so much for spending time with us. And we'll talk again, I'm sure. But I'll do what I can to put some pressure on these scumbags, to come and see you. Siobhan White, the mother of Rhiannon White, brutally murdered in a horrible way, by the way. And I know that might sound ridiculous, but absolutely and utterly, degraded, brutalised, horribly attacked by this little bastard, to be quite frank. Quite upsetting, that. Quite upsetting. But we'll go on, because unfortunately, more and more of these scumbags are arriving literally by the day. 2,200, we were told, up until, I think, Monday or Tuesday of this week, have come on small boats since the beginning of January. And how many of those are going to end up in prison? How many of those are going to end up stabbing somebody to death? How many of those are going to rape and assault sexually young women in this country? How many of our women and girls are going to be attacked by those 2,500 people coming into the country that we don't want and that we don't ask for and that we don't really believe in? That is the problem. Susie says this: Starmer has spent his entire career protecting the very worst in society. He hates us. He really is awful, isn't he? And Jess Phillips ought to be ashamed of herself, shouldn't she? She hasn't even answered Rhiannon White's mother's letters. Siobhan's written to Jess Phillips and been ignored. How the hell can these people even live with themselves? How awful is that? Coming up after the news at 9 o'clock, we're going to speak to Jennifer Ewing from Republicans Overseas. Also, Christian Drogan is going to be here after this, because he's been out and about up in the north of England looking at mosques where, believe it or not, people are actually mourning the death of the Ayatollah Khomeini from Iran. Amazing, right? Shouldn't that be some kind of prescribed terrorist activity? Shouldn't we be rounding these people up and locking them all up and saying, listen, if you think it's a bad thing that this absolute bastard has been killed, then you can go. There's the door. Take the first plane out and don't come back. That should be the message, shouldn't it? Please like and subscribe to our channel. It helps us to continue to build what we believe is the greatest thing that's ever been seen in the media. It's the Mike Graham Show. We'll be back after this.
Why don't you relax and be a bit more MG? That would be a triumph.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. The escalating Middle East conflict dominates UK headlines today, with Prime Minister Keir Starmer insisting the protection of over 130,000 British nationals in the region remains the government's top priority amid ongoing US and Israeli strikes on Iran and Iranian retaliatory actions. The UK has allowed limited US use of British bases, but is not directly joining offensive operations. Defence Secretary John Healey confirmed the UK's terror threat level is under active review following the strikes, while Foreign Secretary concerns grow over risks to UK troops and civilians. President Trump has publicly criticised Starmer's approach, calling him no Winston Churchill and straining transatlantic ties. Elsewhere, Chancellor Richard III highlighted inflation forecasts averaging 2.3% for 2026, though growth projections were downgraded. In sports, and Arsenal extended their Premier League lead with a win over Brighton. More details throughout the day. Laters Tigers.
Here. Thank you very much indeed, Edward Hughes there with the news. We've got some super chats coming in. One from Matthew. It says, when the thin blue line starts to turn purple. Yeah, I know what you mean. One from BGT. Hopefully this woman's testimony is a wake-up call the UK needs. I've just had a message from Charlotte, who's put in one of Starmer's clips from yesterday, in which he says this: protecting British lives is and always will be my #1 priority. Oh, really? Really? Well, it doesn't look like it. Super chat from Salza says, amazing, strong woman. Much love to her and family. That's Siobhan White, of course, who's been suffering ever since that horrible, ghastly murder of her very, very lovely daughter, who was helping out at a hostel, a hotel for illegal migrants. And for her pain, she got murdered brutally by somebody who lived there. Right? Absolutely incredible. Absolutely awful. Now, coming up, we've got Jennifer Ewing from Republicans Overseas. We've also got Christian Drogan, who is with Watchmen, of course. He's been up in the north of England, out and about, watching over some of the people celebrating the death, but not in a good way, commemorating the death, I should say, of the Ayatollah Khomeini. Have a look at this.
So I've come to a candlelit vigil. It's not much of a candlelit vigil. It's more of a celebration of the death of Ali Khamenei.
Thank you! Thank you!
The candlelit vigil's on the other side. There's a big separation of police. Why are you here tonight?
So we're here for the freedom of the Ayatollah is dead. We're celebrating basically, and hopefully soon we're going back to the country. You know.
So what do you think to the people on the candlelit vigil side?
This is just terrorists. You know that.
Do you think they are terrorists?
100%. 100%. That's radical Islamic regime. You know, we be dealing with this for 47 years.
Democracy for Iran!
Yeah, this is on the candlelit vigil side. Oh, lads, just wondering why you're here tonight. Anyone? No. Hi, mate. Just wondering why you're here tonight.
I'm here to support my community and support the people of Iran. Good side.
Sorry. Hi, lads. Just wondering if you're willing to speak to me tonight. No. Why are you here tonight?
We are here to mourn our religious leader.
You're who, sorry?
Our religious leader who has been killed in Iran, and we take it as a terrorist act because he wasn't only the leader of Iranian people, he was the religious leader of 500 million Shia Muslims all over the world.
Okay, and so what do you say to the people who turned up tonight to celebrate?
We would say that it's not the right way to celebrate the killing of somebody.
Okay.
Because we take it as a terrorist act.
And a lot of those people were calling you terrorists, though.
No, they can say that, but we are not celebrating here.
But I think the thing is that obviously Ali Khamenei had funded a lot of terrorism around the world.
We don't think so.
So do you not think the 7th of October attacks were terrorism?
I don't think so.
What do you think they were then?
The 7th of October is happened in Palestine, not in Iran. This is something else.
Yeah, but he was funding Hamas.
I don't know. I don't think so.
So, everybody was dead open on the other side. Very closed and guarded here. I'm fully in the candlelit vigil side now. Managed to get past the police. Hi, mate. Would you be able to talk? Would you be all right talking to me? No. Just doing some balance reporting, that's all. Why can't you speak to me? Is he not allowed to speak to me now?
I can do what I want.
No.
I mean, I have to say, and I'm going to talk to Christian in a second, the overwhelming kind of sense that I have watching that is who are all these bloody people and why are they here, right? What are they doing here? Christian, great to see you. Very good morning to you, man.
Hi, Mike. How are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I said this, and I mean, obviously there are many Iranians who are living in this country who came here because they wanted to get away from the Ayatollah and all of the horrible stuff that he was doing. But, I remember there was a demonstration outside of Downing Street a few weeks ago, and suddenly 30,000 Iranians turned up. And you go, well, why are there 30,000 Iranians who can just suddenly, muster themselves into a demonstration outside of Downing Street at a moment's notice? And how many more of them are there? And are they all going to go back? And so you've got the two kind of questions here. One, how did they all get here? And, okay, if the ones who are here are largely, supportive of the West and they want to get rid of the Ayatollah, who are these other characters who think that actually he's a great guy and that, Iran's sponsorship of massively global terrorist activity is a good thing? What are they doing here?
Well, I mean, I obviously turned up. I didn't know what to expect, so I turned up, and actually the people on the Free Iran side were very friendly, very welcoming, and really wanted to talk. Their sort of vibe was very infectious almost, and so their view of the other side, which I couldn't actually get to because while it was all going on, I had to wait till later until people had sort of started to disperse. But the other side was sort of like predominantly Pakistani and Indian mourners over Ali Khamenei. So which was kind of obviously. The Iranian people were saying they're not even Iranian on that side, so why are they even bothered? But obviously it's to do with him being a religious leader.
Right. But again, you'd have to ask the question, if that's how they feel about the world and that's how they see the world, who let them into this country? And, why the hell are they in Manchester? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, I mean, we just spoke to Siobhan White there, it's a terrible, terrible story about her daughter being murdered by this horrible scumbag who came here from another country. I think he was Afghanistan, wasn't he? And I just despair that we have got such lackluster officials and government ministers in this country who are allowing all this stuff to happen. And I mean, if I was up there, right, and if I was with you last night when you were talking to those guys, I'd be saying to you, you know what? We should literally go and get a van. We should round all these scumbags up, put them in the back of the van, and pay somebody to drive them over back to Iran. That's what we should do.
I mean, if you look at who they were there to mourn on the candlelit vigil side, it's quite worrying, really, for me, because. Obviously, they denied that they believed he was a terrorist,
right.
Whereas, obviously our understanding of Ali Khamenei is very different, isn't it? We see him as one of the biggest funders of terrorism around the world.
Of course.
Now, so we're going back to the point where our leaders, unfortunately, Keir Starmer and the like, they realistically are just failing us so bad, because I've been to France. I've looked at the immigration, the illegal immigration side of things very closely, and I've listened to Shaban Mahmood just spouting nonsense. And to be honest, it's very it's very easy to stop. It really is that there's this whole illusion. That we need to leave the ECHR, and that we need to do all this stuff, and we do need to leave it, to be honest, but we don't need to leave it to stop the boats. There's people being murdered. There's people being raped from illegal migrants, and it's got to stop, and it can be stopped, but they just won't stop it. I don't know if it's because they are incompetent, or just because they can't be bothered, or because they've got an agenda. But I've looked at it so closely, and logic. Once you start applying logic and a bit of common sense, it can be stopped.
But that's the other thing that annoys me as well about all of this nonsense that goes on, is that you've got the police presumably having to patrol and police these events, which are going on almost on a daily basis. And that's not what they should be doing. They shouldn't be wasting their resources on it. They shouldn't have to turn up to make sure that, two different factions from a foreign country don't fight each other. That's not their business. It's not our business. This country has become a joke, it seems to me.
Absolutely, and there was a large police presence all over Manchester last night. Really, I mean, there was a home match on at City as well, Manchester City, and it was. I couldn't believe how many police there were. The riot vans, the police bikes. There was a big police presence.
Yeah, I know. It's just dreadful, isn't it? And I don't know. I mean, you'd like to think if all of this comes to an end. And Iran is returned to sort of some kind of normality, that all of these tens of thousands of people would bugger off back to Iran. I mean, that would be my wish.
Well, I think quite a lot of the Iranian people did say, we're so glad now we can go back. I don't think the other side are really thinking that, to be honest. So,
Do you think if you go to Turkey, for example, you might find a load of dodgy-looking English barbers in the streets of Istanbul? You go and open a barber's shop and go, all right, tell you what, who gives that launder some money? Let's go.
I tell you what I did do though, Mike. I did see a lot of Turkish barbers, chicken shops, and vape shops actually, because I went to Gorton and Denton earlier in the week as well.
Oh yeah.
And I went round and I went asking everybody. I thought, let's go round, let's get on the ground, let's see what everyone has to say, let's see why they voted for the Greens. Anyway, the strong feeling was really that they voted for the Greens to punish Labour, and they hate Labour, and Labour is dead. And no one knew why they'd voted for Greens. No one knew what the favourite policy, or never mind the top three policies. They didn't know what even the favourite one policy was. They didn't know any of the policies. It was really a protest vote against Labour, and obviously plenty of chicken shops, vape shops, and all the rest of it around there as well.
Yeah. And I mean, is it a divided community, would you say? I mean, was there evidence of kind of factional, I suppose, sections, if you like?
I mean, it's quite hard to say, really. I mean, it's more just one community. The whole area of Gorton, really, sort of the Longsight, Levenshulme area is predominantly it's not really your sort of indigenous kind of white English person in the area anyway, that's for sure.
Right. Yeah, troubling times indeed. Anyway, listen, Christian, great to see you. Thanks for doing all that work last night, and we've got loads more to talk about, I know, in the coming weeks. So we look forward to that. Absolutely. And Watchman, tell people how to find your website so they can check out what you're up to.
Yeah, so our website is watchmanuk.com, or you can get us on YouTube and all the other socials, and that's at Watchman Raw.
Brilliant.
And that's it. Yeah.
Great stuff.
Perfect. And also, Mike, just a quick one. A few of your viewers have donated some money through our website, so just thanks to them. And every sort of donation helps us along to get going. Really.
Fantastic.
So thank you.
Fantastic. Great to see you, Christian Drogan, and of course the Mike Graham Show in partnership, bringing you the truth, bringing you the hard news that you don't see anywhere else, because we can, because we care, and because we don't follow the crowd. We don't follow the nonsense that you get from everywhere else, where they go, oh, isn't it interesting that, the changing demographic of the country means that people are voting in a different way? Shut up. Okay, coming up, we're going to talk about what's going on in the Middle East from an American perspective. We've got, of course, Jennifer Ewing here from Republicans Overseas, who's going to tell us what the latest is from the Trump Organization. I mean, some fantastic quotes yesterday from Donald Trump. Caroline Leavitt as well. Absolutely amazing. Should we give it another go, actually, on what Caroline Leavitt had to say to CNN yesterday?
For these families, given what Secretary Hegseth said this morning, is it the position of this administration that the press should not prominently cover the deaths of U.S. service members?
No, it's the position of this administration that the press in this room and the press across the country should accurately report on the success of Operation Epic Fury and the damage it is doing to the rogue Iranian regime that has threatened the lives of every single American in this room. If the Iranian regime had their choice, they would kill every single person in this room. And so we can all be very grateful that we have an administration and that we have men and women in our armed forces who are willing to sacrifice their own lives for the rest of us in this room and for every American across the country and for every troop that is based in the Middle East. That's what these...
Hegseth was complaining that it was front page news about these 6 service members who were killed.
That's not what the Secretary said, Caitlin, and that's not what the Secretary meant, and you know it. You know you are being disingenuous. There is not... We've never had a Secretary of Defense who cares more...
Drones get through or tragic things happen, it's front page news. I get it, the press only wants to make the president look bad.
Yeah,
As you know, we cover the deaths of U.S. service members under every president.
The press does only want to make the president look bad. That's a fact. Especially you. No, listen to me. Especially you and especially CNN. And the Secretary of Defense cares deeply about our war fighters and our men and women in uniform. He travels all across this country to meet with them, to connect with them, and your network has hardly ever probably reported on that. You also had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Chairman Kane, who's a brave patriot, standing alongside the Secretary at the Pentagon this morning, again expressing his condolences to these families. And I just told you that the President of the United States will be attending their dignified transfer. So please,
That's not making the president look bad. That's showcasing that.
We expect you to cover that as you should. We expect you to cover that as you should, Caitlin. But you and your network know that you take every single thing this administration says and tries to use it to make the president look bad. That is an objectable fact.
I don't think covering troop deaths is trying to make the president look bad.
If you're trying to argue right now that CNN's overwhelming coverage is not negative of President Donald Trump, I think the American people would tend to agree, and your ratings would tend to disagree with that as well. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. On the school strike, back to that for a minute. I understand that the U.S. does not target.
He's been hanging around with Jennifer too long. Jennifer Ewing's here. Jennifer, good to see you. Welcome to the brand new Mike Graham show.
Congratulations
thank
on
you
the
very
new
much
show.
indeed. It's really, really good. We'll talk about Caroline Leavitt in a moment, but first, let's have a look at what Donald Trump had to say yesterday about the state of the war.
We're doing very well on the war front, to put it mildly, I would say. Somebody said, on a scale of 10, where would you rate it? I said about a 15. And we're going to continue to do well. We have the greatest military in the world by far.
I think there's no doubt about that America has the greatest military in the world by far. And it's clear, I mean, we were hearing, I think this morning, from people in the Defence Department in the UK, that it's possible that Iran will actually run out of their ballistic missiles at some point in the next few days. They don't apparently have any ships left. We saw the rather dramatic blowing up of the Iranian warship off the coast of Sri Lanka with a torpedo. We had to correct Pete Hegseth, by the way, because like a lot of Americans, he said, this hasn't happened since the Second World War. Well, not in America it hasn't, but actually we sank the Belgrano.
Oh, that's right.
With a torpedo
Yes.
in the Falkland Islands. But you were saying to me, Jennifer, that you know, watching Caroline Leavitt there, who I think is brilliant, that she might have maybe gone a little bit too far with the way that she was criticising CNN.
I think, and I'm no fan of CNN,
Right.
I'm no fan of Caitlin Collins, I do think that they have not covered the president fairly, you know, for the last 10 years
of course
at
not.
all.
No.
But I also think just because there is varying opinions within the, you know, Trump-supporting Republican Party
Right.
about these actions, that she has to be very careful not to shame people into saying it's not okay to ask questions.
Right. And I guess particularly if you're asking questions about servicemen and
Of
women
course.
who are losing their lives.
Of course. I mean,
because that's an issue, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the U.S. does not have a tolerance for American body bags coming back to the country. So we hope to see no more of that, obviously, in an ideal world. But it's going to be very interesting. The best case scenario at this point is that, like you said, the ship was sunk, that, my understanding is the goal is to make sure that Iran can no longer attack the U.S. Through either its proxies
or any of its
itself.
neighbors, yeah.
Exactly, and then I think we have to turn it over to the Iranian people and say, okay, now this is yours to decide how you build back your country. Now that statement even sounds a little crazy as it is, but again, President Trump did run on a no foreign wars that were not existential to the United States of America. That's why so many people who voted for him had no idea what we were doing involved in Russia, Ukraine. And probably for this as well. So there's a lot of debate and discussion going on right now within the Republican Party, within people who voted for Trump, and that's a good thing, right? I just don't want the...
Presumably, sorry to interrupt, presumably it leads to the next question, which is, because what comes after Trump, in a way? Who is the person who steps up as the next sort of presidential nominee? Is it J.D. Vance? Is it Pete Hegseth? Is it somebody from MAGA? Because I keep hearing there's two kind of distinct groups. There's the MAGA Republicans and the sort of slightly less enthusiastic, shall we say, Trump Republicans. Because the other question is because of Keir Starmer being so useless in this country, focusing on whether it's a legal war or not a legal war. Is there any of that conversation going on in America as to whether it's legal what he's doing?
They had a vote yesterday with regards to the War Powers Act, and people will say, "Oh, well, you have to go through Congress." Well, actually, none of the last 4 or 5 presidents have gotten any approval from Congress. You do have, whether it's 60 days, 90 days to act. And the other thing to keep in mind is whether it's Democrats or Republicans, they don't want to be on the record either supporting the war or being against the war, because at this point we don't know how it'll turn out. Hopefully, this is very surgical and it's quick, and we get out within a matter of weeks. And, peace breaks out amongst the Middle East, and it's the greatest thing in the world. But I think history tells us, especially after 20 years in Afghanistan, that there's a lot of people that are very suspicious that could be able to happen. And if we are, in fact, being slow-walked into another boots on the ground war, that's going to be a problem, and people are not going to want to be attached to that decision. But I think it's interesting, the Prime Minister of this country, if I truly believed, that he was doing the best for the British people, and it's the best interest of the British person not to be involved in this, I'd have respect for that. I'm an America First person. I think I live in England. It should be, England first as well. But to bring up legal issues, that just seems bureaucratic.
Yeah, I mean, also his position, it seems to me, is very, very shaky, because on the one hand he says, well, we didn't get involved in the original strikes because we thought it might not be legal. But now he's involved in the strikes currently, even though nothing's actually changed. And you kind of go, well, you can't have it both ways. You can't say on the one hand it's illegal, or it was illegal on Saturday, but now it's okay because we've been attacked. And as somebody pointed out to him in Parliament the other day, one of the backbenchers on the Tory party said, if Iran strikes the Cyprus airbase with a missile or a drone, and we then hit them back, is that defensive or is it offensive? And he couldn't answer. He doesn't know.
Exactly. And now the reporting is saying that did not come from Iran. So that's another issue. So, it's the fog of war. There's going to be all sorts of lies told and misunderstandings. And like anything else these days, oftentimes people's views are based off of the media in which they consume. So you could flip through 10 different channels in this country, in the U.S., and indeed the Middle East, and come up with think there's an entirely different situation going on.
We saw that on the weekend, didn't we? I was actually watching Al Jazeera, which I hardly ever do, just as a matter of interest, and they were reporting very hard that a school had been bombed by the Israelis and 73 kids had been killed. turned out to be not true at all. And if indeed it had ever happened, it was more likely to be because of something Iran had done itself.
Well, I guess the press secretary addressed that yesterday. She was asked, was this the U.S.? Because these little kids were killed in a school. It was like, was this the U.S.? Was this Israel? And she said, we're looking into this. So if it was a mistake by the U.S. or Israel, we need to come out and own it and be very honest about that. I pray that's not the case. But again, I think that just zooming out a bit, a lot of Americans voted not to be having these discussions right now, voted to close the border, improve the economy, get on the housing ladder, make sure we can go back to families where maybe one paycheck you can have a great life. And now we're talking about the Kurds and, this faction of Iran. And I think that is not going to, unless this winds up very, very quickly, this is not going to bode well for the president.
It's not. It's a bit like we were just talking to Christian Drogan, our man from Watchman organisation up in Manchester, who's, flitting backwards and forwards on two sides of the street between people who are pro the Ayatollah and people who are anti the Ayatollah. And all it makes me think is as a British person, why the hell are they all here? What are they doing in Manchester, debating whether or not the Ayatollah was a bad guy? Bugger off back to Iran. Thanks very much indeed. And I know that's not the most charitable point that people can make, but, people are fed up with this kind of, foreign wars, forever wars, people that can't get on with each other, Hindus fighting Muslims in Leicester, enough already, just get lost, and if you can't settle your differences in Britain, go back to wherever it was you came from, thanks.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And, from a British first perspective, whether it's potholes in roads or schools or, my God, I mean, one of the worst things I think in this country, and I think it could really take a lesson from the United States, is drill, baby, drill. And even prior to
particularly now.
Exactly. And even prior to this war, I remember, Greg Swenson and chairman of Republicans Overseas UK and I were asked about a little over a year ago, after the president was reelected, what do you think about the special relationship going forward under Trump? And we were asked to speak at the House of Lords, and we said there's a couple of ways in which we're diverging, and one would obviously be our views on illegal immigration and border control, and number two, energy security, so, the United States is Joe Baby Joe. You cannot have national security or indeed an economy without energy.
Without energy,
Exactly.
Without energy that you control. Which we, of course, have now. And it turns out that Ed Miliband, the world's biggest bumbling idiot, was one of the people advising Keir Starmer not to get involved in this particular action. Let's have a look, though, at what Starmer had to say, because I think we've got this, Pooch, on the special relationship with Donald Trump.
What I was not prepared to do on Saturday was for the UK to join a war unless I was satisfied there was a lawful basis and a viable, thought-through plan. That remains my position.
Yeah. I mean, I find it slightly irritating that he seems to think that he alone makes the decision which then affects everything that Britain does, because I don't think, one, that he's qualified, and two, I really don't trust his judgment, to be honest.
Well, exactly, and I don't think he can claim to be an anti-war prime minister.
No.
And I know this is not a direct comp, so I'll say that before. But I think it was a couple weeks ago he was saying, let's put troops on the ground to, in Ukraine, which is another insane war, that did not need to happen. And quite frankly, until President Trump came into power, I've felt that the UK, the Europeans, and the previous U.S. administration were happy to just have this thing continue, for over 3 years. So I think a little more consistency, perhaps first
trouble.
Principles.
But he's exactly right, because he makes out that he's this principled guy who's driven only by the law and driven only by, international commitments and all the rest of it. And yet he sort of blows with the wind, and you just kind of think, he was so sure that he wanted to make everybody know that we didn't get involved in the original strike, which everybody now says, which is what I said last week, is because entirely down to his slavish kind of love of the Muslim population and the Muslim community in this country, because he daren't say anything that would upset them, because he thinks he's going to lose their vote. Well, guess what? He's already lost the vote, They've already gone to the Greens.
Yeah.
You know, it's not happening.
Yeah.
But what do you make of what Donald Trump said about him, saying, you know, we're not dealing with Winston Churchill here, which I think was brilliant. Is there a chance, perhaps, that the relationship between Starmer and Trump is now busted? Not so much the relationship between Britain and America, because, you know, King Charles is going to go there. It's probably all going to be fine. The Chagos Islands deal is probably going to be blocked. But I wonder whether Starmer and Trump will ever get on again.
Sure, and I think, you know, President Trump, for whatever his faults are, he's always quite polite when someone else is in front of him, another leader.
Yeah.
You'll notice whether it's Erdogan or Prime Minister Starmer, whoever, he pats him on the back and actually is quite complimentary to them, which is just diplomatic. But the two of these men have very big differences in, you know, whether you call it ideology. And like I said, number one would be the border security. Number two, energy security. And number three, you'll notice there have been a lot of rifts back and forth between the two countries about censorship and free speech. The United States pulled out of a $30 billion tech trade deal that we were going to do with the UK because of the online safety bill. So I think, to answer your question, that this issue is just going to bring that more to the forefront. Like, okay, I think the UK does have to be careful that it doesn't become irrelevant on the world stage. If you look at the Board of Peace that Trump had created, there's all these new kind of partners, and people can laugh and say like, oh, it's a bunch of people in the Middle East, or it's the Central and Eastern European countries. But those are the people that these days seem to value in their borders and their sovereignty so much more than, say, Germany, France, England. So I would also keep an eye on that, the divergence between Central and Eastern European countries and the UK and Western Europe.
Oh, I think there's nothing more irrelevant looking than Keir Starmer was, I think, at the beginning of the week. You know, on Sunday and Monday, when he sent out John Healey on Sunday, the Defence Secretary, to talk to all the various different TV shows, and basically not give an opinion on whether or not we supported what America had done, was so ridiculous. It just looked amateurish, it just looked bad, it didn't look clever, you know, and if that was the briefing, if that was the best they could come up with, you just thought, you know, well, we are irrelevant now.
Yeah, and make a decision, which I think, again, people have to have first principles. Like, make a decision. Are you doing this because you genuinely think this is not in the best interest of the British people? You don't want blowback. You think because of the open borders there might be, you know, sleeper cells going off here. Great, make that argument. You know, just like I think my president in the U.S. has a pretty serious case to make for if he's going to continue what he's doing in Iran. He does. People, you need to tell the people why you're doing what you're doing. They may or may not agree with you. I'm not sure that the Prime Minister has done that.
No, he hasn't, because he doesn't even know if he agrees with himself.
Yeah,
that's part
exactly.
of the problem. But listen, Jennifer, great to see you.
Nice
Thank you
to
very
see
much
you.
for popping in. Jennifer Ewing, we'll be talking about this, I'm sure, for a while, because it's not going anywhere yet. It would seem. And we're pretty much at the end of the show, 9:33. But before we go, obviously, we can't go on a note of international dissent. So what we will do is play you Pooch's Pooch, because this is how...
966. Hey.
966, guy.
If you show me 1042, and after 9 years of service, if you'll show my K9 partner Indy out of service 1042 for the last time. Hey, buddy, come here.
966, we received. All units stand by for a broadcast from the Trophy Club Police Department. Benton County, all units. After 9 years of dedicated service, K9 Indy, badge number K91, is retiring and signing off for his final shift. K9 Indy has made a significant impact in our communities by seizing over 2 kilos of powdered fentanyl, more than 4,000 pounds of marijuana, in addition to more than 35 pounds of methamphetamine and more. He's been instrumental in seizing over $300,000 in drug money and has participated in over 11 SWAT deployments.
Come here, buddy.
He has assisted in 44 criminal apprehensions, including a notable recent apprehension of a criminal gang member. Indy has educated many in conducting over 50 canine demos for public and school events, demonstrating his skills and dedication. Throughout his tenure, Indy has assisted over 38 local and federal law enforcement agencies, serving as an ambassador to the community and a trusted partner and friend to his handler, Sergeant Barry Sullivan. Indy has always answered the call, no matter the hour, to assist officers in our county and beyond. Thank you, K9 Indy, for your service and love for the job you have done to protect and serve. From all of us to you, Indy, we wish you a happy retirement. K9 Indy, you are 1042 for the final time. Denton County clear at 1806.
Good job, buddy. Good job. What do you say? What do you say? We appreciate it, County.
Oh, isn't that lovely? Such a lovely. Sorry.
Yeah.
Real weeping now. That's beautiful, though, isn't it? I mean, it's so wonderful. And we make no apology. Yeah, we're all crying. We make no apology for playing that. And we keep doing it every day because we love dogs, frankly. They're much better than humans. We'll see you tomorrow, 7 o'clock. Don't miss it.
Remember, despite all of the others out there, it's always the others. Don't be a plank.